Welcome back to the Wine and Dine Pod, the podcast where we drink wine and talk hoops. I'm Chris and that's Lyndsay, and we're back for another episode.
We some stuff's happened since the last time we recorded. I guess that's one of the many advantages to recording every other week. There's always news.
WNBA free agency is heating up, Unrivaled has been heating up, and it's kind of turned into almost like a Summer Olympics-esque, everybody banding together and testing the free agency water situation. Everyone's trying to figure out who's going to play with who. It's been kind of fun. Uh, We also got a nice bottle of wine here today. It is backwards on the screen right now, as you can see, but it is Cannonball Cabernet Sauvignon from California. We wanted to do something from Cali because of NBA All-Star Game coming up in San Francisco, where I'm from, although me being from there is not part of why we chose the wine. It is a mere coincidence. Shout out to the Bay Area, though. Stay hyphy, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, this is our second California cab on the show. This time, I'm a little more excited to drink it. James Harden is not involved, so I don't have to be a hater.
Hey, that was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It was not bad.
It
It
was
wasn't
fine.
super cabby, but it was nice though. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was pretty jammy. This one's pretty nice. It's also a little bit on the sweeter side, I would say. It's got a really nice color, though. Super dark and bold. My palate is a little compromised because I have a cold, so that sucks. But they talk a lot about their big, bold flavors of red fruit, like cherry and wild berries, and I can definitely taste that. So yeah, it's pretty good so far. It's a little bit of like some chocolatey kind of earthier tone, like dark chocolate kind of earthier tones under there, I think. Again, I
Yeah, I
can't
get a
taste
little
a ton
jamminess
at the
too.
moment.
Like a little bit more jamminess than like usually get from like Cabernets. Like it's not particularly tannic, you know what I mean? This is not gonna suck all the moisture out your mouth. And like I do get like in the ad copy on the back it says it explodes with black cherry. I don't know if explodes is as dramatic as I would go, but I definitely get a lot of that black cherry in there, which I appreciate as somebody whose favorite ice cream flavor or favorite gelato flavor is Amarena. So I'm a big black cherry advocate personally. So I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, me too, actually. I also love black cherry. Yeah, like you said, it's not super tannic. There's a bit there. Like, I can definitely feel it, but it still has a little bit of acidity as well. My cheeks are kind of watering. So, it's got a kind of a nice balance of acidity and tannin. Definitely not your, really big, bold kind of Napa Valley. It's like super spicy, dry cab. It's not your Chris Pauls of Cab Savs, as we previously discussed on the show. But it is nice. It's not as jammy as the James Harden was. So that's nice. There's definitely a bit less sugar there, which is good. I kind of like that balance of the tannin. It's pretty nice. This is definitely nice, just like table wine, honestly. It's kind of perfect for this episode, actually. It's nice and easy drinking. We're talking about some fun stuff today, so I think it goes pretty well. And yeah, you could take this to a party and people be pretty fine with it. I think it's
Oh
pretty
yeah, no, this is the
pretty
easy one. This would be
approachable.
a crowd pleaser for sure. Yeah, this is definitely less Chris Paul, more LaMelo Ball, if that makes sense. At least it's within the realm of Cabernets. Maybe Tyrese Maxey. I feel like LaMelo might be like a vanilla flavored wine or something like truly outside the
Something
box
deeply
like that.
unserious. That's like yeah, I'm trying to think of a good example without slandering anybody necessarily. I'll think on that.
He's hoping though. He's hoping, but like
Yeah.
yeah, it would definitely be
It's
something a
the
little bit unusual.
LaMelo's like the jammy California red blend that has a lot of
It would
Zinfandel.
be LaMelo would be some shit that make old people go like, "What the fuck is this?" You know what I mean? Like it might actually be good, but it would make like a traditionalist be like turn their nose up and be like, "Man, get this out of my face." Like, but it might actually be good though. You know what I mean?
Has potential. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
definitely I like the Tyrese Maxey comparison. It's got a little bit of zest and fun, but it's also got enough structure there, that you can take it seriously.
Mm.
This would stand up to food. It's not like it's just a easy drinking wine. You could easily put this with something and it would be good. It would be good with some cheeses. It would be good with it's not quite a steak wine. It's a little bit too fruity for that, but you could even get away, to be honest, with like more like a barbecue situation because it's not super tannic and dry. It's not going to overpower the smoke. Sometimes cabs have a little bit too much of that kind of dryness, and they're a little too bold. This one's not particularly overpowering, so like you said,
Yeah,
it's not
tannins and smoke just having a heavyweight fight in your mouth, basically.
yeah, it just overpowers because like the thing with brisket is that yes, it's beef, but it has like the smoke is a delicate flavor, right? So you don't want to drink something
Mm.
that's gonna completely overpower you, and so you could get away with this. I think something a little less sweet would be better because the fruit is very much there, but it could work. Like, this would actually be good with even like something like duck, to be honest, like a really rich poultry or like pork, you know?
You gotta tell me twice. There's a roast duck place not too far from me that has been calling my name for like a week. So
Well, there you
I might
go.
have to
Give
second
it a
half of this
shot.
bottle tomorrow might have to be some canard involvement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm into that. I last year I did a pairing dinner through my work, so I worked with this barbecue chef actually. So he did shrimp ceviche for the first course with a Sauvignon Blanc, and then we did a smoked turkey with a Pinot Gris, and then we did duck confit with California Pinot Noir. So it was a pretty sweet Pinot Noir. Went really well with the duck confit, and it had this like cranberry sauce. It was really good. It was, and then we did brisket with a cab sauv, but it was kind of like this, where it wasn't a super tannic cab sauv, maybe a little less sweet, but still had that kind of nice balance of spiciness and a bit of fruit and whatever. It was really great with the brisket, and yeah, it was really fun. A duck is so good. It was a maple duck
It's
confit.
phenomenal.
That's what it was. Yeah, maple duck confit.
That's very Canadian. Very Canadian.
Yeah,
I love it.
it was super good though.
It's like in the way that adding egg on top of anything makes it breakfast. Adding maple on anything makes it Canadian. I think is the rule.
Yeah. People from Vermont and Maine might beg to differ, but there's only one maple. Actually, even some Quebecois would probably beg to differ that it's Canadian. Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah, yeah. Depending on their level of separatism in their spirit, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
I
see that.
had I had one of those experiences when I was living in Finland. All of the other Canadians in the city I lived in were from Quebec and they were all separatists. It was very weird.
Separated themselves so far they went all the way to
It was super funny because when people asked them where they were from, they would say Quebec, and everyone's like, "Isn't that in Canada?" And they were like, "Yeah, but we're from Quebec." And they're like, "Okay, cool."
To be fair, when people up here ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from California. I don't say I'm from the U.S. So it's
Which is
relatable.
fine,
It's
but
relatable.
for
But I
it's a
think
bit
we could
different.
actually sustain ourselves as a nation. I think it might be we have to borrow some water, but I think other than that, we produce enough food and energy that I think we'd be all right for the most part.
I think it's a bit different too, though, because the reason you're saying that is understandable. For them, it's a like, we're not Canadian, we're from Quebec situation. But you're right. Also, Quebec would be highly unsustainable on its own. But Canadian separatism aside, it was always pretty funny. But yeah, this wine's pretty good. I'm happy with it so far. I think it fits with our theme. So kind of like the cap of
Shout
the
out to French
bottle.
Texas. Shout out to French Texas.
I guess like the cap of the bottle says to dive in. So we may as well just dive into what we're the basketball here. We'll return to this.
Yeah, as a non-swimmer, idea of just cannonballing into the water is a little terrifying to me. Diving into the free agency waters, far less so, especially since we need some players. We have
Yeah,
4 people under contract over in Phoenix out to the Mercury. Yeah, I don't know what it's gonna look like this year. Hopefully, it's not another sad first round exit. But there's a part of me that thinks that's kind of what the destiny is. But you never know.
I guess. Yeah. Do you want to start with free agency or should we start with the trade that happened last night?
I think we gotta address the trade. It's
Okay.
recent,
So we'll come back to the Mercury in a
very
second.
recent.
Yeah, this we're recording Monday here. The trade happened Sunday night. Shockingly, I had seen Christina Williams from Girls Talk Sports. Yes, Girls Talk Sports. She had a report that there was rumors of a 3-team trade happening yesterday morning, I think I saw. Maybe Saturday night on Instagram. And then, yeah, kind of a shocker. Somehow the Las Vegas Aces have finagled Jewell Lloyd from the Seattle Storm. They had to give up Kelsey Plum to do it, which kind of tough to lose the Plum dog, but they cored her, which means that there was issues going on with her contract probably. And I know that Vegas is in an interesting position, like all contenders, where you have a very expensive starting lineup, and that has not changed with Jewell Lloyd now in the starting lineup. But interesting trade. And then, of course, Seattle gets the number 2 overall pick from LA, which is a pretty big pick to give up. But I guess Plum Dog's probably worth it. That's a little bit much, but I mean, I think she has the ability to do a lot for that team. I think she fits really well with Kurt Miller.
That shooting too, because I mean, foundational piece out the draft last year was a non-shooting big. I think having Plum out there to hit them threes from way the fuck out off the dribble is going to be massive for them. But I gotta say, I was surprised by the trade, even though I think even going back to last season, like the middle of last season, I felt like there was kind of an understanding that Plum was probably not going to be in Vegas next year. Partly because the cap situation and her contract being up. And I think I expected maybe leaving in free agency. I wasn't expecting such a big trade. Or if there was going to be a trade, I figured maybe for multiple smaller pieces. I didn't think they were going to get back a star. And they said this was the first time ever that two number one picks got traded for each other, which is super interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, the Aces, man, they rich and they stay rich. My
they
goodness.
stay rich. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that they got exposed a little last year in the playoffs, unfortunately, by the Liberty. And I think the situation with Kelsey and her contract, and it happens on every team like that, right? Unfortunately, I think players want to, they want to get paid, obviously, and rightfully so. But it gets hard to pay everybody, and it gets hard to like make everyone happy. So yeah, I suspect that this was, and like you said, there was a good chance that she wasn't going to be around. So rather than lose her in free agency, but I agree, I did think that they would trade her, but it would be more for like more assets because they don't have a lot right now. They've
Yep.
spent pretty much all their money. They never have really great draft picks necessarily. They're kind of at risk of becoming. I mean, the WNBA is kind of hard to do that because contracts are generally pretty short and there's a lot of movement now, especially with free agency. So it's a little bit different, but you can see the roster becoming stagnant, right? Because a lot of their picks
Mhm.
haven't really worked out. They lost Kate Martin, who was a pick who did work out, shockingly.
Mhm.
She worked out better than their higher picks from last draft, and then they lost her in the expansion. And then, I mean, Kirsten Bell hasn't really done anything. They don't have a lot on their bench, and so it's really interesting that they would opt to go the star route and get back Jewell Lloyd, which does make sense when you have a player like Asia Wilson. You have to do whatever you can. But I'm almost surprised they didn't want like the pick, like try and get Seattle's pick
You would
in
think,
a
yeah.
way. Because this draft is so stacked, you would be getting a rookie who could contribute right away, right? Like it's not like you're getting, like a 10th or 11th or 12th pick. You're getting probably like, yeah, you're getting number 2 or a pretty high pick, I would think, somehow. And Seattle still has Skylar Diggins-Smith and Gabby Williams cord, so she's going to be at least around next season. So they have players to compete, and I mean, Nneka's a free agent, and they'll want to bring her back. I'm not sure that that's going to happen with all the controversy there. But it seems weird that they would want a pick rather than a player, whereas it seems like Vegas actually could kind of take a year, absorb that, having that pick, and then they'd have a bit more youth, because that's something that the New York Liberty have a little bit more than them. The good news is the W, like we said, kind of has lots of opportunity to move around, so you can reconstruct a roster pretty fast. So hopefully
I get
the
the sense that
Aces.
owner is not trying to, play the midterm game. He's very much a win now kind of guy.
Mark
He's
Davis, he knows he's not
more
winning
successful
championships
there
with the
than he is with the
Raiders.
Raiders.
He knows he's not winning championships with the Raiders anytime soon, so he's
Yeah.
invested in the Aces, which you love to see. I will give him credit. Like when the Aces won in Connecticut a couple of years ago, when he got handed the trophy, he kept it real brief and moved on. He gave the credit to the players and gave him the trophy. So respect for that. He seems to understand what he's doing when it comes
Surprisingly
to.
impressive as a W owner,
Yeah,
very
I
unimpressive as
was
an NFL owner. It's such a weird
incredibly
situation with
nervous.
him.
I was super nervous when he took over. But I think it also, to be honest, and this is like, I don't want to like put too much praise on Mark Davis at all, but this also might sound like a really big like dampening. But I also do think that like just it shows how low the baseline level for taking care of a W team is compared to like owning an NFL team. Because the fact that he came in and he's like, wait, I don't have to fly you. I don't have to own a plane to basically to fly you around. Like I don't have to, make a deal with freaking Delta or whoever to fly my team around. I don't have to have your own practice facility. I don't have to have even like your own arena technically. Like you can play some. You don't have or whatever. All this shit, like So of course he's like, well, I'm gonna. I mean, credit to him, he was willing to like spend it once he saw that gap. Right?
Mhm.
He understood that he can't. The CBA limits him in lots of ways from helping his team, so he understands if we spend monies in these way, it makes us desirable, and obviously winning helps. So credit to Mark Davis for doing those things, but it also, I think, actually what we're not talking about enough is how it actually highlights the fact that there are some poverty franchises out there because they're doing the bare freaking minimum, and it is upsetting. It's like I never thought I'd be rooting for billionaire owners, but it's like they're doing a better job than most. Even teams that are owned by the NBA, like the Fever, are getting their own practice facility, which is interesting. I thought they would just be able to use the Pacers, and I don't know if they do or not. But I mean, during the Gainbridge Fieldhouse renovations, like, and they were playing at Indiana University, like, it kind of sucked, and their team took a hit. And it's like you'd think for it being owned by an NBA team, they'd have a bit more opportunity for. But even like the Connecticut Sun, they practice in a high school gym. Like it's pretty embarrassing.
I mean, they play in a casino.
So do
Like,
the Aces, technically.
But I mean, yeah, it's. I was actually a little surprised by Mark Davis because if I was imagining somebody who'd be like the big spender owner in a league, I wouldn't think it'd be him because a lot of these other pro sports owners are dudes with like 30, 40 billion dollar net worths, and they own some fucking oligarch ass business that runs half the country, and his money is from his father Al Davis, and Al Davis's money was from just being the owner of the Raiders, which he bought back when a franchise cost like millions and not like $3-4 billion. Like he's probably like the NFL probably looks at him as the poverty owner, and in the WNBA he's like the big spender, which is such a weird. Yeah, the financial
Life
gap
comes
between the
at
two
you
leagues is
fast.
obviously, yeah, it really does. He's like, oh shit, here I'm the man. Like, what is
I'm
this?
rich. Yeah, he's like the Lakers, right? Like the Bus family, their money is from the Lakers. It's
Mhm.
not from or whatever. It's not like Steve Ballmer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't own Apple. They own the fucking Lakers. They
Which
own
the
the
Tsai
Forum.
family for sure is one of those kinds of owners, and they've done really well with
Yeah,
the Liberty. But I would say that I was less surprised about that when they bought the Liberty as well, because they committed to that right up front. It was just surprising for me with Mark Davis, knowing him as a sports. Because also I didn't know the Tsais really. Joe Tsai hadn't fully taken control of the Nets yet, so Prokhorov was still involved. And then, yeah, like with Mark Davis, I have that history of knowing him from the Raiders, right? So for me, it was definitely more surprising when he turned. I was nervous when that sale happened. I was like, oh God, we're letting this clown into the league, but it actually worked out well.
yeah. I'm still a little sad by the Liberty, the previous situation. Obviously, back when Dolan was the owner, they had them playing in fucking Mars,
Westchester.
basically. Yeah, some ridiculous places, not even in the city. It wasn't really spending on the team like that. Wasn't really promoting the team like that, and it saddens me that the like Knicks ties are kind of severed. There's probably an alternate world in which I would have been like a hardcore Liberty fan, but it sucks to see them under the Nets umbrella, but it is what it is. I'm still happy for them. Spike Lee's
It is,
still a fan, so
it is kind of funny though that they're under the Nets umbrella and they're more successful than the Nets in most ways because
everybody's more successful.
I mean, it's not hard, but it's just really funny and proof that like if you have a good team, people will come because like especially that like Brooklyn fans can actually like basketball, you just have to be good. And I would
Yeah,
say
that's
to be
part
fair,
of the.
and to be fair though, I guess I would say Liberty fandom is different because it had those past ties and it's been around for a long time. So they've had that fandom that just feels also re-energized on top of new people.
I think that's part of the impatience of some of the owners and like the win now mentality of a few of them is I think a lot of them can sense that the league is growing really quickly. There's a lot more attention on it now. There's probably a lot of money to be made as the league blows up and new TV deals and CBAs and stuff are upcoming. And I think a lot of those owners are like, well, how do we be the brand that stands out? And part of that is just like good strategy, good promotion, but some of that is just fucking winning, right? Like you become a national brand by winning championships. And so a lot of these owners, I think, are like, hey, while the league is in this rapid, like exponential growth phase, let's get us a couple rings so that 20 years from now, there's people who are like, man, I fell in love with that team in the early 2020s. And even though I live in fucking Idaho and we have a team there now, it's just a random example. They're never gonna have a team in Idaho. But they you have that built up from way, way back. And you have this like national fan base. You want to be the Cowboys of the WNBA. Maybe not in the sense that they suck now, but
You
in
don't
terms of
want your
having a
owner to be
national
Jerry
presence.
Jones, but yes, you
Yeah,
want the
yeah. You
America's
want
team
to
branding kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly, exactly. You want
yeah.
to be the Cowboys, you want to be, or even like the Packers or the Steelers, a team that has reach way outside of its geographical region because they had a period in one of the league's main growth phases where they were historically dominant. That's what you want. And I
Even
think
a
they're trying to
team
strike while the iron is hot.
Even a team like Buffalo actually, because like there's Bills Mafia everywhere, and they haven't even
In
really been
Canada, I
that.
feel like in the States, I think they're pretty limited to Western New York,
It
but definitely you see
seems
them all
actually
over
seems
Canada.
like there's more though, like for sure. I've definitely seen like because there's local Kansas, like there's local Missouri like local Bills Missouri fans who are helping Bills fans get tables because the city of Kansas City put like a
Mm.
ban on people from out of state buying tables and
But
shit.
is it from the like the Rams widows though, like the ones who
Maybe
because that divorce was messy, and
true.
none of the St. Louisans followed the Rams to
LA.
LA. Like none of them, they all abandoned that
True.
shit.
That's
Well,
true.
they
I
were like
mean,
Sonics fans. They were like they went to Oklahoma City. They were like, fuck it, we don't even have a team anymore. I'm not.
but I do
It's
think
not like the Raiders where they everyone follows them wherever they move.
I
They're like, nah,
mean,
fuck that.
but they
They're dead to
didn't
us.
because the Raiders don't even really have good like home game atmosphere because they're
I mean, like
well. They're shitty.
Maybe not necessarily in terms of traveling to the games, but like people who grew up Raiders fans stayed Raiders fans
True.
even when they left their city, and they've left multiple cities multiple times. Like they've left Oakland like 3 times.
I do think that also, but to your point with winning, is that like players like having a player like Josh Allen and then winning will make your
Hmm.
brand better. So like the Bills have become more popular outside of Buffalo because Josh Allen and whatever. And so yeah, I think that that helps infinitely with, and like you
The
said,
Bills, they're Canada's team. Canada's team.
it depends where you live. Here it's more Seahawks fans. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
It depends actually. Alberta's pretty mixed, I would say, just because we're not really that close to either. Seattle's
Y'all in the
closer,
Rockies, I
but
figure there's got to be some Broncos fans, right?
there's
Like
some
a
for
few.
sure. Oh yeah, for sure. Lots of weird Packers fans. I think a lot of it's
They're everywhere
attached to
though.
like, and Steelers fans, if Cowboys fans, whatever. I think a lot of it is attached to who you like grew up watching to some extent, like, and popular players of the era a bit, you know. So like my mom became a Cowboys fan because her first football game she ever watched was Staubach and whatever. So that's how she became a Cowboys fan. And you
My
know, I
dad became a
think
Steelers fan in England. You know what I mean?
yeah, right. So, but it does help to. But again, there's the Cowboys and Steelers, those historical branding situations. So yeah, the W is trying to figure that out, but I think winning helps a lot because I mean the Liberty, I think we're always like a sleeping giant in that sense. They're in like the largest market and they have a long history in the league and etc. But at the same time, teams like Indiana are trying real hard because they have Caitlin Clark to figure out how to capitalize on that in a more sustainable, positive way than just Caitlin Clark too, right? Like just becoming a more modern franchise in general because nobody really thinks about Indiana as that in any way.
You know what? I try not to think about Indiana at all, personally, but
I mean, yeah, fair enough. To be honest, I also don't think about them frequently.
like there's better corn in other states, I'm pretty sure. Like we already have Nebraska.
There's better corn in Alberta, frankly. Fucking Tabor corn, it's famous.
Michael Jackson from Indiana, that's all I got. Michael Jackson, like Freddie Gibbs. That's pretty much it. I think Jeff Teague too.
Shockingly, a number of excellent basket. Dana Evans is from Gary. Lots of, I mean, Skylar Diggins Smith is actually from Indiana, I think.
Yeah, I think she's from Indianapolis.
Yeah, or she's from South Bend, actually. Like she's probably from Indianapolis though, but she is from Indiana, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Larry Bird, but we like Larry Bird.
French Lick. The only reason people know French Lick exists.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. No,
Amazing town name, by the way.
my other favorite was I was driving through southeast Saskatchewan and I encountered Kandahar, Saskatchewan.
There's some fun place names in North America where you're like, what is the relation? Like no
Yeah,
resemblance
yeah. I
whatsoever.
mean, obviously one of the most famous is Dildo, Newfoundland. You know,
It's a good one.
or
It's a good one.
Conception Bay. Actually, Newfoundland has a lot of innuendo town names. It's pretty great.
I think knowing what little I know about that area, I'm not too shocked. I heard the folks out there are interesting.
Yeah,
They're
the best
characters.
people. Truthfully, though, the best people. They're so much fun. There's
Oh, I
tons
don't
of
even mean it in a negative way. I just heard
no,
they're goofy. Like that's
super goofy. Yeah, and honestly, you don't really know what they're saying most of the time, especially when they're drunk, which is a lot. There's a lot of Newfies in
yeah, they're like
Alberta.
Irish-esque, like somewhat Canadian-ish accent, like fusion they got going on there.
Yeah, they were actually the last province to join Confederation. They didn't join till after World War II.
And yeah, I never
Fun
heard
fact.
about Newfoundland separate.
Nah, they're just doing their own thing, trying to live. It's a pretty poor place, to be honest. It's not really like,
Newfoundland being like the Okinawa of Canada is wild. I didn't realize they joined that recently. Like I never really thought about
yeah,
it like that.
yeah. They're their own. That's actually a good comparison because they are their own culture, their own they have their own freaking time zone that's like an extra half hour. It's weird.
Damn, a half hour is amazing.
Yeah.
Do
So
we want to be
Newfoundland,
fashionably late as like a
so like Newfoundland is
early?
I think Newfoundland is 3.5 hours ahead of Alberta.
Amazing.
It's so
Amazing.
funny. Oh, it's the best. But anyways, we hard digressed from. So going back to Indiana though, and cord players, I think their biggest priority is figuring out Kelsey Mitchell's situation, I would say.
I thought they cored her or were going to.
They
Did
did
they
core
not?
her, yes. So they did core
Okay, yeah.
her, but I mean that's only 1 year, right? So I guess for the purposes of people who don't actually know what coring is, because I didn't really understand it for embarrassingly long time, is that a cord player is almost like a franchise tag essentially so that you'd see in the NFL. So it's a fully guaranteed 1-year contract that's worth the supermax that both a UFA or RFA are eligible to get. A core designation contract is a 1-year deal on the maximum base salary. So essentially, you're kind of like just buying yourself time. Like the player can only negotiate with your team. So Kelsey Mitchell can only negotiate a new contract right now with the Indiana Fever. And if the Indiana Fever decide they want to trade her or she wants to be traded, they can work together on finding that deal or whatever. But she really only has exclusive rights with the Fever right now. And I think it was predictable that they were going to core her. Things started off kind of weird with her and the Caitlin Clark. That whole situation was a bit strange to start the season, but eventually by the end, I think that they found really good chemistry and started showing that there's a potential there for Kelsey to be a winning player, because I think that was always a big question with her. She got big numbers in Indiana, but obviously nothing really happened in terms of like the W column with her. So she's obviously got a ton of skill. It's kind of like Arike in Dallas, where it's like there's a ton of skill there, but what's it going to get you? Now, Arike obviously won in college at Notre Dame, but still, it's in the W. It's kind of hasn't proven to be a winning formula. So it's interesting with Kelsey Mitchell to see what they're going to do.
Yeah, I don't get the impression that she wants to stick around, even though they did find a workable on-court solution toward the end of the season. I don't get the vibe that she's long for Indiana, which is probably why they had to core her. I don't think I'm
I think
guessing
so too.
extension
I would
negotiations
agree.
did not go incredibly well.
I would agree. I think they're going to have to overpay to keep her, and it's a decision about whether or not they want to do that. Because obviously, players like Nalissa Smith are starting to show good promise. They have a ton of young players, right? They got to figure out what they're going to do with Lexi Hull eventually, because she's been good but not great. And then eventually they're going to have to pay Caitlin a shitload of money all the time, right? So they'll have to figure that out. And if Kelsey doesn't want to be there, then there's that too, because you don't want a disgruntled player. She could take the money and then demand a trade, right? So I think that they have to decide probably what they want to do that way.
So a little bit of a pivot. I don't know if you have more Indiana thoughts, but I see the Shy Sky shirt. I know that the Sky are building. The Sky are building. Is there among the available free agents? Is there a player like this is who I hope you sign? Like who was on your free agency wish list as far as the Chicago Sky go?
It's a good question. Kind of looking. To be honest, I hope Sloot comes home. That's more of a just like it's not really a serious winning thing. I just think that she's probably going to retire shortly, and I would like it to be in Chicago. Natisha Heidemann, I think, would be really interesting. Would offer some shooting around our rookies. Even someone like Kia Nurse, you could probably get her for not a ton of money. Kennedy Carter, though, that's the situation that's really fascinating. She doesn't want to stay in Chicago. She's made that very clear. It's not often hard to figure out what she wants, because she will tell you. And so, yeah, there seems like there's some beef there. So that's interesting. And I mean, not terribly surprising, but too bad, because she was showing that she actually could be some kind of piece going forward. There's a lot of like veteran free agents for sure.
I'm curious what's going to happen with like Deladon, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, as far as one more Chicago Sky too thing is Dana Evans is an RFA. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with her, because she has been promised a lot and never really given that. Then she requested a trade at some point. Yeah.
do you think Chicago's going to be aggressive in free agency, or they're just going to say, you know what, we got these 2 young bigs that we just drafted last year. We're going to be patient. We're going to slow build, or are they going to try to like, hey, we got to get back in the playoffs?
It's hard to know. I was worried that potentially by the fact that they were when they fired Teaspoon, I was like, okay, maybe they want the playoffs, but then they hired another developmental kind of coach. So I don't think that that's where they're going with that. But then I don't really know. So I think that they'll probably kind of like let it sort of ride a little bit. We have a high pick. They'll probably try and fill out the roster. They just need to figure out what they're going to do to replace Kennedy Carter and what they want to just do at the guard spots in general, because they're also losing Dana Evans.
It's going to be a big season for y'all, man. Like, I'm excited to see how the 2 bigs are going to work together, though. I think they might be able to get a little high-low chemistry going, especially if Reese can develop like a little mid-range jumper.
Yeah, even just some more accuracy at the rim, improving her efficiency around the rim will be really helpful. I'm excited to see what she does in Unrivaled. I think that playing the 3-on-3 game will probably help her.
Mm-hmm. Just to develop that like scoring a little bit more, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. You'll tend to get more looks at the rim during 3-on-3 and things like that, so it'll just kind of change things up. Getting to be around some really important W vets and yeah, I think it'll be really helpful to her. So it seems like the culture of Unrivaled is really good too, and so um, I think it'll be positive for her. I think she's going to come back strong. Camilla's having a really strong season in China. She's crushing it over there, so I feel pretty optimistic about that. Yeah, Diamond DeShields is a free agent. Curious to see if she comes back to Chicago. I'm not sure what they're going to do. I don't know. Honestly, I'm a bit on the fence about what they're going to do, but I don't think they're going to be incredibly aggressive. But ownership is really hard to, I don't know, ownership's hard to figure out, frankly. I can't tell what they want.
The Shields had a little bit of like a down year last year, right? If I recall.
Yeah, she didn't play amazing, I don't think. Or I think her minutes were a bit limited as well. I will admit, as much as I loved Teaspoon, she did have some interesting rotation situations.
There's a place where they could use her, the place where she's already played, where we wouldn't mind having her back. But
But I mean,
same goes to Kia Nurse, same
yeah,
goes to Breonna Turner.
yeah. But back to Deladon, I am also super curious to see where Elena Deladon lands, what the Mystics do with her, because they kind of fucked. I feel like they fucked her over a little bit last time, coring her and kind of just whatever happened there was kind of weird. They could have just let her go and, let a franchise legend kind of just like go out the way she wanted to go out. And they kind of refused to do that. So I'm curious to see what happens there. It looks like she's a UFA though. I
I'm
believe.
pretty sure, yeah.
Yes, she is a UFA. So
I think about 35, 36 years old now.
yeah, she would definitely be going to a team who doesn't need her to play a ton, but needs whatever she can give them. And she is frankly my favorite candidate to go play for Vegas, come off the bench in Vegas. Because she would offer a ton of
They already
size
got
that they
so much.
need. I know, but their bench is crap, right? Like she could kind of have that Candace Parker role before Candace got hurt.
A whole team of like MVPs and
I mean, Candace was.
like
I think
80-time
Candace.
All-Stars.
I think Candace was starting, but I think that Elena would be great because they need decent bigs. Because Kia Stokes was not good last year. Gustafson's good, but she can't be like a. You need somebody else, and you could even play a Deladon and a Gustafson together, right? So that would be, I think, a good spot for her to land. I think even another veteran team like the Mercury could be good, obviously. The Liberty can always use a player like her, although I don't think she'll go there. I doubt she would come back to Chicago. I could see the Lynx trying to get her to just kind of be there as like another player off the bench. Because again, their bench seemed a little bit questionable at times. She would be a good mentor for someone like Dorka Juhas. And again, wouldn't have to necessarily play a ton of minutes because her body just, I don't think, can do that anymore. Minnesota's also not I think she wants to probably stay. I don't know. I'm sure about her family situation, if that still impacts where she wants to be, because that's why she forced that trade to Washington in the first place, right? So I'm not sure if she's open to kind of whatever market would be the best for winning. I'm not sure quite what her exact motivation is at the moment, but I hope that she comes back because I would very much like to see her play. Much like I would, again, I'm going to campaign, I'm like the Bernie Sanders meme, I am once again asking for Emma Miesemann to come back to the WNBA.
It would be nice. It would be nice, and I know a team who needs powerful.
And she's been crushing it overseas for the last couple of seasons. She's having a great season for Fener this year in Turkey, and she's been on fire. Like she was amazing at the Olympics. She's been like dragging the Belgian cats, kicking and screaming.
Big shouts to Belgium. Just got a new coach.
They just hired Emma Miesmann's former championship coach, Mike Thibault.
Yep.
So I'm happy for Mike Thibault. He's a good coach still. I think his general manager skills were a little questionable, but I think he's still a really good coach. And so I think that that's a good hire for the Belgian Cats, to be honest. The Mercury need to kind of step away from the Thibault family a little bit here and kind of get a fresh start, which I think they're doing. Didn't they fire Eric? Did they fire Eric? Yeah, I think they did. Hold on.
I'm curious where Miesemann would even want to go if she came back to the W, because I'm sure every team would be trying to get her. There's a lot of teams that have, and not only enough cap space for like a max player, but even two. I mean, a lot of them would be really pinching the bottom of the barrel, like for that back end of the roster. There's a lot of teams with cap space to sign somebody. A lot of them have like 8 and fewer players signed. I think the most players signed by any team right now is like 9. So a lot of teams they'd just be straight minimums on the last like 3 or 4 players, but a lot of W teams don't really a lot of them only carry like 12 players anyway. And there's not necessarily a lot of like
maximum of 12 players, but they mostly only carry 11.
Yeah, it's you don't have the 15-player rosters like the NBA, so I think some teams might not be super concerned about who the 10th, 11th, 12th is.
If Emma wanted to come back, some team would figure it out. They would bump players off their roster to get her. She's the kind of player that will always have a spot in the WNBA because she's been a proven winner. I mean, she's won a championship and she's been one of the best players in the world now for the last couple of years. So teams would sell out to get her for sure.
Oh yeah, if the 10th and 11th player got to be the second and third round picks from that year's draft, that's what they'll do. That's what they'll do.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So again, she's not, I don't think there's many rumors of her coming back. I think the prioritization rule has proven to send a lot of European veterans back, probably. People who are kind of like, well, my national team commitments, like especially with the Olympic year last year, were more important. So I'm curious to see what happens with Emma. I think she also, that last year in Chicago was pretty gutting, and I feel like when everyone left, she just kind of was like, later losers, and so I'm curious to see.
It's
what
hardening to
happens.
know that there are some genuine star caliber players who sat out from the W to focus on, trying to achieve glory with their national team, only for the U.S. to win gold again.
I know, right?
It warms my heart a little bit. Sorry, I'm the absolute worst. I'm not even like an American jingoism ass person, but like when it comes to national teams in sports, like you know what I mean? It is what it is. You know what time it is.
Yeah.
Like everyone else can kick rocks. I hope we win. Like that's
Fair
what we
enough.
are.
Yeah, fair enough. I
We on
respect it.
Republican time when it's the Olympics. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's relatable. Most of us feel the same. But I'm like the first person to mostly question the integrity of my country. But when it comes to national teams, like, sure.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I left my whole country multiple times. Like
yeah,
you know what I mean? Very relatable. Very relatable.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
currently outside of it right now.
You really are. Yeah, you sure are.
hmm
What other other free agents we got going on that are interesting? I'm curious to see
There's
what
one
happens.
who is a published author now who is testing the free agency waters for the first time in her career and is apparently fielding meetings with multiple teams, and that is Brittany Griner.
Yes, that's very fascinating. I'm curious. So this one reminds me low key of what happened with Stewie her last year in Seattle, where the Storm let her investigate free agency. She took meetings, then she went back to Seattle for 1 year, and then decided to go to, she wanted to entertain the idea of free agency, especially for a player like BG who's never really done it. And now teams
hmm
actually get to court you properly and you get to get good shit. So I wouldn't be super surprised if all she's doing is just kind of seeing what that feels like. And I also think she's probably keeping her options open because of the Diana thing, the Diana news looming over everyone. Because if she leaves, then I don't see BG staying, which is interesting because I thought she'd be Phoenix forever. But then it's also, I think that connection to Diana is just too strong. Like she would want to maybe make her own way somewhere else and win somewhere else.
It's interesting. It has me kind of nervous because, like I mentioned before, Unrivaled, you're playing with players from a bunch of different franchises who aren't normally your teammates, and she went on the record as saying, "Hey, I'm out here at Unrivaled showing off my skills for free agency." And there's a part of me that's like, man, what if that chemistry really hits somebody else from outside of the Phoenix Mercury organization, or even maybe not even somebody on her Unrivaled team, right? Maybe somebody passing in the hallways, man. Like, one of the opponents even, you get to talking, all in the same city for a game. You get to talking and yeah, I'm concerned, man. BG leaving would suck. I'm holding off on making the decision to buy a Mercury jersey until I figure out what's happening with BG this off season because also I would have bought one like 3 days ago, but the WNBA website was being weird about the discounts. It was like, oh hey, everything 25% off except jerseys apparently. So,
Yeah, well, that's the
there goes
WNBA
that.
website for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, BG is fascinating. It will be really tragic if she leaves. I mean, for the Mercury. It's interesting though how the Unrivaled has become almost like a center for like in a way that Athletes Unlimited never did. I think
hmm
because Athletes Unlimited wasn't really started by WNBA players, even though WNBA players played there and still are. But it's interesting to see how Unrivaled's become this like center for like WNBA free agency gossip, like with coaches, trades, whatever. Like everyone's there. Because I mean, I've seen Cheryl Reeve pull up. So like coaches have been there, GMs have been there. Like it's interesting how it's becoming almost like, I mean, it's been fascinating to see it so successful already. It's kind of proof that if you put it on TV, people will watch. I mean, to be clear, I haven't actually watched it yet,
Yeah,
but
it goes back to something I've said for years about like upstart leagues or like especially like women's sports leagues. If you put like real production values into it and you put it on TV with the good cameras and the good angles and shit, the fact that it like demonstrates that they're taking it seriously and that shows the audience that like we're gonna take this seriously too. Because I've seen some sports leagues outside of like the Big Five, right, where you pull up the game and you're like, oh shit, I'm excited to look at this, and it's like It's shot. It looks like it's shot on a 1990s camcorder from the audience, and there's like the replay is just the same angle you saw on the broadcast, but zoomed in and grainier, and you're just like, man, this doesn't feel like a TV viewing experience. But then like when the same players are playing in like the Olympics or whatever, the Olympics or the World Cup, you look at it and you're like, oh, this is now it's a professional broadcast. I'm like, damn, I'm locked in.
Well,
And
even
it's
even
cool
like
seeing like them take it really, really fucking seriously and put the
like
production values into it.
Sparks games for like the last couple years looked like they were like when they're in Venice, it looked like freaking it was dark in there. It was like weird. And yeah, like the production value, things like that matter, but also just giving them a fair chance because like I
Hmm.
look like the XFL can start and fold several times, but every time they start, they get a national TV contract. So as much as you and me have bitched about the quality of TSN, the fact that they even have a Canadian outlet and they did their best to answer those questions from day one about where you can watch from outside the United States and even in the United
Hmm.
States, and they have a big partner for each one is really impressive because the WNBA still doesn't even have that in some
Hmm.
cases, frankly, right? So they don't do that. They do a shitty job of telling you which games are available in Canada on national TV, which they're gonna have to change obviously which will change obviously with the tempo coming.
You would hope.
Regardless.
You would hope.
Yes,
The tempo
actually.
games will be available. We cannot speak for the other marquee matchups, but
I'm
I'm sure
curious.
tempo games will be on TSN or
Yeah,
Sportsnet,
I
one of
suspect
the two.
that they'll do the same thing they did with the Raptors and they'll split the rights, which is fine. Whatever. The fact that
Paying for both, but
it'll
it
be
is what it is.
nationally, at the end of the day, it's a WNBA team that will have national television every game. So no other team will be able to say that. That's one thing the Raptors have always had, right? And I think that's another reason why American media has kind of always hated the Raptors a little too, is that those numbers don't count for them. So it's like, well, shit. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have a single viewing audience, but none of those numbers are going to help you. With the W, I think it'll be a little bit different, obviously, just because it'll be, I don't know. I feel like it'll be a little bit different. The fact they're expanding is huge, but it is kind of funny how that works. So, yeah. The Mercury, though, are going to be interesting. Obviously, Natasha Cloud, Kalia Copper, they're going hard at recruiting. We'll see what happens. I hope that BG stays, frankly, but I think what happens with DT will determine what happens with the rest of that team.
Yeah, she'd be one of those players where it would just feel weird to see her in another uniform. There's some players that switch teams and it just seems natural. Like, watching Cat on the Knicks felt pretty normal. Watching Sky switch teams didn't feel that weird. But some players, you see them switch jerseys and you're just like that jersey looks nice, but why does that person not look right in it? And I don't. It's like a weird disconnect where it's just like I never thought I'd see that person wearing different clothes. It's like if a cartoon character, you know how cartoon characters are the same outfit every episode. If they just switch their style up all of a sudden, you're just like, whole
Yeah,
different aesthetic.
it's like even seeing BG wearing an unrivaled uniform is weird because like seeing her wearing like her UMMC uniform or like any of the like Russian uniforms she wore when she played overseas was different because they have a different aesthetic and
Yeah.
it's different, right? Whereas but these like the unrivaled jerseys look like WNBA jerseys kind of, right? Like they're the same sort of style and whatever. So it's just even weird seeing that.
I never imagined her with another team until like this season, basically, like this last season. Never
Yeah,
thought about it.
right? It's super weird. But I wouldn't blame her. I mean, as much as Natasha Cloud is a veteran, she's still definitely a little bit more of a bridge kind of timeline player. So like with her and
Hmm.
Kalia, right? So they can kind of be their own thing. It doesn't have to be around BG and Diana. And so I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens there. And I don't know. Maybe this has to do with some of the coaching. I think the team generally felt like the team was behind the coach, but maybe there was some with BG, or maybe it's just the fact that like maybe she's just tired of being in Phoenix. Who knows? I have no idea.
I can relate to that.
Arizona.
Oh boy, they
In the words of Lucille Bluth, I'd rather be dead in California than alive in Arizona.
were they saying King of the Hill? It's a testament to man's hubris or something like that. Like this shouldn't
Yeah,
city shouldn't
this
exist.
shouldn't
Like,
exist.
yeah, it's something. A place where you can fry an egg on the sidewalk. That same heat has done something to some people's brains. Let me tell you, it is.
It's an interesting place.
I'd never anywhere else had somebody like threaten to like fight me at a cash register when I was like ringing them up because I didn't smile enough. Like it's a weird place. It's a weird place.
It is a weird place. But it's
Yeah,
also like I understand why, like I don't know, I also enjoyed it and I get why people enjoy being there. It's kind of fun. And I
they
also
75 degrees in the winter is very nice. I ain't gonna lie.
for as weird as the people are, they're also like the libertarian sort of nature of them also makes them not really give a shit about a lot of things. And so like of all the places like my partner and I have traveled, like we get the fewest looks for being an interracial lesbian couple. Like people just kind of don't care. Like okay.
It is an interesting place. It is an interesting place. I gotta say.
Yeah, it's also like chock full of Canadians, so you you don't feel left out
I
there.
checked so many Alberta IDs when I worked for a
Uh-huh.
liquor store in Phoenix that
Yeah.
I yeah, we actually didn't even like normally when you check an out-of-state ID when you're working at a liquor store or whatever, you got to get like a manager to come in, verify it, blah blah blah. For Alberta IDs, it was just like we treated it like Arizona IDs, man.
Yeah, so like Ontarians go to Florida. That's their like
Yep,
American place.
yep.
Alberta goes to Arizona. Like when we flew to
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, we went like in July, which was a weird time to go, but whatever. The flights you can fly direct from Calgary to Phoenix for like super cheap. Actually, cheaper than you can fly to BC, frankly, most times. It's kind of hilarious. I can go to Phoenix for cheaper than I can go to Vancouver sometimes, which is
I've
insane.
explained to a lot of people that like it's really easy to find poutine in Phoenix, Arizona. Like the
Yeah.
least, like geographically and physically, like the least Canadian place possible. You can find poutine readily. It is not
Yeah,
difficult. And
no,
not
it's
even
super
just in
funny.
downtown. Like I lived way out in the west suburbs and we had phenomenal poutine nearby.
Most of the Canadians are actually like in Glendale, Scottsdale, like around Phoenix. They're not even in Phoenix because it's all
Yep,
about the golf courses.
yep.
Everyone goes there to golf. Like my aunt, like for years, my aunt or my great aunt and her husband would go down. Like my grandparents never became snowbirds, but all their friends were. And yeah, it's like a real thing. And I get it, frankly. I There's been a couple winters where I'm like, I understand because this sucks. Prairie winters are not for the faint of heart. So I understand why when you get to a certain point, you're like, fuck it, I'm going to Arizona.
Do y'all get because I've lived in the Great Plains before, but farther south, obviously. Do y'all get ice storms? Because ice storms are disgusting.
Not a ton here, partially I think because of elevation. So like Calgary's really high elevation. We're still like 30, like we're about 3,000 feet above sea level here still. So
Damn.
yeah, so Calgary's actually like a pretty high, we're kind of like Denver. Obviously not as high as Denver. We're still about 2 or 3,000 feet lower than Denver, but we're like we're pretty high up actually. So we don't get as much ice storm like around Calgary. Can't really speak for the north of Alberta necessarily. I've never really lived up there, so I don't know.
Nobody has lived up there.
I don't remember them being in Saskatoon getting ice storms, more like blizzards. It's not I don't think there's enough humidity, frankly, necessarily, or like it's just a bit colder maybe up here because of latitude versus like somewhere like Nebraska or Kansas or wherever where it's like
I've seen the entire town flash freeze when I was in Kansas. Like leaves just completely like turned into icicles and nothing moves no matter how windy it is. It's fucking weird.
we do get a lot of like hoarfrost, like that like really pretty white like frost.
I'm sorry, what kind of frost now?
It's called hoarfrost, Hoar. Uh
Okay. Okay.
it's a real thing. It's like everything is like it's like that really like white frost. Like it looks like snow, but it's not. We get that. But it's not really a storm. That's just like when the air is incredibly freaking cold. Yeah. We don't really get a
And
lot of
yeah,
ice.
when you said hoarfrost, I picture something like really old-timey where like they're like, "Oh man, people are being sexually promiscuous and we're being punished with brutal cold winters."
Yes. Yeah, we're being punished for the sins of others. Very
Yeah.
Victorian. Very
I hate when that
Florida,
happens.
actually. Yeah. Oh, the worst. Truly the worst. Yeah, no, we just get a lot of shitty wind. We have a lot of wind here.
Yeah.
Not a lot to stop it. I
No,
guess
it's yeah, I know that feeling.
our climate's the most similar to like Montana and the Dakotas because that's where we border and Minnesota, I guess.
Yeah,
Maybe
my dad went
slightly
to high
less,
school in
yeah.
North Dakota. He never went back after graduation. He
We have
never returned.
we have more to offer than North Dakota, I will say that.
I
Like,
hope so.
yeah, no.
I went to Calgary for 2 or 3 days, and let me tell you, based on what I've heard about North Dakota, it seemed a little bit more popping. At least a little bit more.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
We have a lot more
It's
going
great
on
brunch.
than
I had great brunch.
Fargo, North Dakota, although we are a good filming location apparently for the TV show.
I know y'all shot they shot The Last of Us near Calgary, if I recall
They filmed
correctly.
it literally around my house. It made my life very inconvenient for a while.
Damn.
Traffic. So they filmed on it's called the Fourth Ave flyover. So like when you come into downtown Calgary off of Memorial Drive, it's like the main road into downtown. You come up over this like overpass and into downtown. And so they were filming on those. And then I remember one day my partner and I had to go somewhere, and we're like at this light, and we can like look up over on the flyover, and there's like cars, but there's like trees and all kinds of like bullshit there. And we're like, wait, what happened? Like,
When they were being
because
like fake Pittsburgh, I think it was.
probably,
In
and it
in
was
that
just like
chapter. Yeah.
we're like, I didn't watch Last of Us. It's not really my jam, but I was just like, I don't
It's pretty good.
understand like what is happening here. And then I was like, oh, right, filming. I forgot they're filming a post-apocalyptic story in Calgary, which is accurate. But the first season of Fargo, the TV show, was filmed in my hometown. And then the other seasons were all filmed in like different places in southern Alberta. But the first season was in Calgary and Strathmore in my hometown. And I
You'll
didn't
be
know.
shocked by how much shit is filmed in Canada. Everyone knows about
No.
Toronto being fake New York. I was watching Shogun, right? And I remember there's a scene where like the boats come to the harbor.
It's Vancouver.
And I was sitting there, I was like, those trees look very Pacific Northwesty. I was like, that shit don't look like Japan.
It's Vancouver.
And I looked it up. Yeah, Vancouver.
So
Great show, by the way.
Alberta has been like Alberta has a ton of things that have been filmed here. Like a ton of movies have been filmed here. Like obviously one of the most famous was The Revenant, and then
that makes sense.
Yeah, and then Hell on Wheels.
Shout out to Bears.
The TV show Hell on Wheels was filmed here. Brokeback Mountain was famously filmed here. I think some of this, I want to say some westerns have for sure been filmed here. I just can't remember which, but a ton have been filmed in Alberta. Alberta had a really like good film credit for a long time, so it was actually a good place for a lot of American movie producers to come up. There's actually like a ton of chuck wagon drivers actually are stuntmen for like Hollywood when they come to Canada and come up to Alberta for various things. And then Vancouver obviously like has tons too. I mean, both the Deadpool movies were filmed in Vancouver.
I mean, Ryan Reynolds being Vancouver, right? Is that what they call Vancouver people?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. He probably wanted that for personal reasons.
Yeah. But tons of stuff has been filmed up here. The Power Rangers movie was filmed in Kamloops, where my grandma lives. Where I went to school.
Seriously? Like the first Power Rangers movie?
Like, well, the most recent one, like the...
Okay. I thought the one from like 95 or whatever, where I saw that shit a million times on VHS when I was a kid. I was like excited for a second there. I was like, wait, really?
No. The most recent one, they filmed it. And I was going to school in Saskatoon when it came out. And it had like, I lived in Kamloops for a few years for school too. So my friend and I both went to it. And it was so funny watching them have like the main fight scene down like the main street in downtown. It was hilarious. I'm like, hey, we got coffee there. As like someone like flies through the window. It's hilarious.
I gotta watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's been a lot filmed here. I actually watched, it was like last summer or 2 summers ago. I don't know what it was for, but I saw like a stunt, like a car stunt, a scene being filmed in downtown Calgary. I was like walking somewhere, and they just had a street closed off. I just stood there and watched it.
That's the dream.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
That's the dream.
Yeah, so a lot has been filmed here because we have amazing scenery. So, and film credits help. It was a big deal when the government got rid of the film credit in Alberta. I think they brought it back, but yeah. Anyways, we should probably talk about the free agency more. Is there any other free agency thoughts? Because I feel like with RFAs, Dejanay Carrington, she's going to find something with the Connecticut Sun. I think that they'll figure that out. I'm curious to see what happens with Dana Evans. The others I'm not really sure, because Temi Fag-Benley in Indiana, I suspect they'll try and keep her. She was quite important. She fit really well with Caitlin Clark. Michaela Onyenwere, she was in Chicago. Curious to see what
Indiana's
happens.
got plenty of money too. Like they'll be fine.
Yeah, Indiana.
As far as keeping their players.
Yeah, they'll want to keep Temi. It's just Kelsey Mitchell's willingness to stay. I think that's the only thing preventing them from the Kelsey Mitchell situation. It's not money. Ari McDonald, I'm curious to see what happens with her in LA. And then Dana is really the one Dana and Michaela are the ones I'm actually like the least sure about. Just with Chicago, new coaching. Like, I don't know if Dana gives Chicago another chance. I suspect she wants to go somewhere else. She asked for a trade. So, she does. So curious to see what happens.
It sucks because, like, you know there must be something with the organization that people are not liking because Chicago's a great city. I mean...
It's the organization. They've always been pretty cheap. And, I mean, they're building a new practice facility now, so I guess that's something. But they've always been kind of a cheap franchise and whatever. I would say that Alicia Clark, for as far as UFAs that are left to talk about here, Alicia Clark probably not going to go back. I'm curious if she goes back to Vegas because now they have Jewell Lloyd who plays her position. Dewana.
The Sky are third in cap room. The Sun, oddly, first, but then they have 3 players signed, so they got a lot of decisions to make.
That's because Dejanay, Dewana, and AT are all off of... Although AT, I believe that did they core her?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes,
her and her shoulders will be in town for another year, barring some kind of surprising
shoulders, trade. You mean?
Surely she's got them back by now.
She still has not had those labrums repaired. It's insane.
Get them labrums fixed. You might like them.
Like, damn, girl.
I personally enjoy having them.
Yeah. Actually, so probably the most interesting free agency situation that I'm watching is the Satu Sabali thing in Dallas because she has told the Wings she is done playing in Dallas, but they cored her. So I'm curious to see what they do there. They'll probably try and trade her, I guess. Probably a sign and trade, just so they can recoup some value on her. I doubt they'll let her leave her for free. Let her leave for free. Yeah, Satu is over it in Dallas. She's tired of being part of the Enrique Gunbowale show, and more than that, I actually suspect it's more just she's sick of the freaking up and down and bullshit that's going on in Dallas. I think she
hates
liked
Dallas traffic.
I think she liked the last coach, Letitia Tremo, and I'm curious if she's just sick of the instability because they've gone through like 5 coaches since she's been there. So it's been pretty rough. And I mean, injuries have obviously been an issue, and I think she's just sick of carousel of the team sucks if I'm not there, even though we have other talent, and the coaching
They were not very
situation
good
is
last
a
year.
mess. Well, I mean, injuries last
Worse
year were
than I
brutal
think
for
I
them.
anticipated.
The injuries last year were brutal for them, for sure. But it's still just, yeah, there's a lot of weirdness going on there. Curious where Satu lands. I mean, obviously, she wants to play with her sister in New York, but I don't know if New York has what it takes to get her. But she is an incredible player who everyone's going to want, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
She might be the most intriguing, like,
Free agent.
potential moving piece that I see on the board right now.
Well, because she's a young star, like really, she's still technically, she's only been in the league for, well, really as long as Sabrina, so they came in the same draft. And
which is wild to think about. Like,
well, they played together at Oregon. It's crazy because I think that's another reason she wants to go back to New York. She can play with Sabrina. And I think that Courtney Vandersloot's probably done in New York, so I suspect that Sabrina's officially going to be like the new point guard going forward, which is fine. It worked pretty well last year. I think that Sabrina has aged well enough to be able to be the point guard now full time. They don't need someone like Sloot as badly. Having like a fee bitch, like a player like that who's just more of a defending kind of like presence, but can still run point is probably enough for New York. With Sabrina there, so I think there's probably motivation for Satu to want to go there as well for that. But the challenge is just that I don't think that New York even has like the space for her in terms of like they don't have the money probably, and I don't think that because I had to core Brianna Stewart as well. I don't think that they have the pieces to give up to get her in a trade either.
it's interesting that it was a core and not an outright extension, but maybe new CBA looming probably.
I suspect it has something to do with that. Yeah, the new CBA is probably impacting a lot of those decisions because I don't think that Brianna Stewart wants to leave the Liberty by any means.
Yeah, that 200K could turn into $1 million real quick depending on what the new CBA looks like, and I understand trying to wait around for that because that could be a game changer, especially with the way the league has grown lately. That next CBA might be real money. Like it might not be like right now. It's like the max contract is under 300K. It's mid low 200,000. You're talking about
It's like
a
the
very
max like 250.
successful CPA, you know what I mean? As opposed to next CBA with the way it's blown up on TV, the way it's blown up in person, size of the crowds. Like you could be looking at like you're talking millionaire money potentially in the next CBA, I think.
Yeah, I think there could be really good growth for sure. As long as their media partners don't fail them. Or the WNBA doesn't fuck it up because they're pretty good at that.
I think hopefully I think that genuinely the conversation around the league and the level of growth might actually be too big to completely fuck it up. Like there may be missed opportunities, but I don't think I would be shocked if max salaries didn't like fucking like double. You know what I mean? I'm no econ expert, but I genuinely think we'll see a really substantial increase.
Yeah, you're probably right. I suspect that's probably where Brianna Stewart is as far as that goes. What I don't know about is like Alyssa Thomas with Connecticut. That situation's very fascinating right now. What makes me think that she's probably staying on some level is the fact that they hired a coach who isn't going to be there for a rebuild. He's there to win games now. Right? You don't hire a national team coach like that who has proven that he can turn programs around like in France and wherever. You don't hire someone like that to do a rebuild. Like he's not like Darko in Toronto where he's a developmental kind of coach, whatever. He's an overseas coach who's here for like to win. I'm curious. That makes me think AT and Dewana will probably go back. At least AT. I don't see them playing a part necessarily, but you never know. I would see them going back, but I think they probably wanted to see what the vision would be like first. And AT's situation is probably dependent on what happens with Dewana. I suspect that if Dewana goes somewhere else, that AT will just play out her core year and then leave.
Tawana is low-key my dream free agent for the Mercury. I understand she's like 36 now.
Still
You
bucket,
never
though.
know how much is left in the tank, but she's one, still a goddamn hooper. And two, Uh, the sentimentality, right? I understand it's like cutthroat league and you want to like maximize efficiency and whatever, and especially as the league becomes a bit more like NBA-ized, if that makes any sense, as far as like starting to get like advanced stats and stuff into it, and people trying to like, how do you the understanding of roster building as far as you want to get people in the rookie contracts when they're cheaper, blah 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 blah. I just think DeWanna, I think Bonner is a fucking hooper, and I'd love to see her back in a Mercury uniform before she retires. But
Yeah, I
plus, I
agree.
mean, having another swing 3-4 is something the team really.
Well, especially because she can easily play the four. She's quite tall, right? So she could play the other wing from Kalia, and it would
And
be
Beck Allen, who missed a chunk of last season,
yes.
they can kind of be interchangeable 3/4s
And
together.
they've played together before.
Yep.
Because I believe Becca Allen was in Connecticut before she came to Phoenix. They've played together before, and they can fit because they both can shoot the three, and they're both good defenders. So it would
Yep.
definitely be actually she would be a great fit in Phoenix. Frankly, DeWanna would fit in most places, but in Phoenix it would actually work really, really well. And
Her
she
and
has
Beck would
that.
just be arms everywhere, man.
Oh yeah, and then Kalia, and then you've got Kalia, who's a bit smaller. She could even bump up to shooting guard if you had to. Frankly,
Yeah, honestly. I think that might even be her natural position,
yeah,
quite
she's a
frankly.
little small as a three, to be
In terms of
honest.
her role, like the way she actually
Yeah,
plays, I think
yeah,
she's
yeah.
like kind of a big two more than a
Her
small three.
scoring role for sure. Yeah, I mean, and then of course if DT comes back, you still have her to slot in here and there. So I think that Dewada would be fabulous, but yeah, I'm not sure what her motivations are exactly. I suspect she's probably testing free agency because again, things have changed with free agency since the last time she did, right? Teams can kind of
Mhm.
court you, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the jankiness in Connecticut in terms of just like not having a real practice facility and that kind of stuff eventually kind of starts to like impact you because you leave Phoenix, they have all this nice stuff, and you're like, well, maybe I kind of want that, especially as you get older in your career. But I
I
feel like
saw Natasha Cloud pitching potential free agents on their nice new facilities, and let me tell you, that's some nice new facilities.
I would go to Phoenix for that. Yeah, for
Oh my
sure.
God, yeah. He told
Yeah.
me it's 75 in the winter, and they got like the sauna and the food spreads and all that
And
stuff.
it's like pretty cheap
Yeah,
to live in Phoenix, frankly. The cost of living in Phoenix isn't terrible.
it's weird because it used to be super cheap, and now it's kind of blown up, but it's
Hey,
still nowhere near what it would cost to live in
I
like fucking New York or
of the
it's probably still
cost
cheaper than
is
Chicago.
part of the cost is also the influx of Canadians buying up homes and that kind of stuff. We did that to ourselves.
I mean,
Yeah, the snowbirds didn't really help the situation necessarily.
probably not, probably not.
I mean, I don't know how much it hurts it exactly long term because they're buying mostly at golf courses and places like that, anyways. But and places that aren't necessarily like in trend. It's not like gentrification kind of thing where it's driving up cost in like places that were traditionally cheaper. But it is definitely more of a destination, I suspect. I think there's been some industry that's been attracting people there, and like the state itself has just kind of grown. So, and that's like every cheap
Yeah,
place, right? Like Nova Scotia has always been like Halifax has kind of been that city in Canada recently where every millennial wants to go there because you can actually afford to live there. But obviously, the more people that move there, the more expensive it gets over time, right? So Phoenix is probably,
yeah.
and
If there's a
Phoenix has
little
more
more
to offer than
entertainment in Halifax,
Halifax.
I'd probably entertain it to be honest. Like, but it doesn't sound like it's really a lot going on out there. I'll probably
Mm,
never see a concert again if I move to Halifax.
yeah, no.
Nobody
But
tours out there,
to
which
be
makes me sad.
fair, if you live outside of Toronto, you really have very little chance of seeing a concert again. Even Montreal and Vancouver get
Yeah,
shortchanged because
yeah, yeah. Honestly,
American bands love to do this fucking thing where they do a North American tour and they go to one stop, and you're like, oh, cool. It's the one that was like closest to
yeah.
the border. You fuck faces.
I think like 50 Cent went to like Edmonton and shit though. So
Oh yeah,
shout out to him for
he came to Calgary too.
uh I
I knew
think
people.
Ed
Who,
Busta Rhymes too.
people
But
went. I knew people who went to that show in Calgary. It was pretty
yeah,
fun. With all the G Unit guys. All of us older millennials. I didn't go, but I knew people who went. I mean, the thing is like Calgary. It depends. Like we get lots of shows. We used to get way more. COVID kind of killed
mm,
it a little. It's just the cost of traveling in Canada is kind of expensive. It's not that they necessarily hate us, but when bands do come here, they usually come back because we have great crowds. It's one of those things where
yeah,
like people feel happy to get shows.
yeah. I don't think Halifax. I don't even think they don't even have a CFL team, which
They've had
is a
games
little
out
tough.
there, so no, but they're trying to get one. They've been trying for
Yeah,
years to get one. The CFL's played games out there and it's been super successful too. Like they sell out like crazy, but for whatever reason they haven't expanded. It's actually a very the Maritimes are pretty big for basketball randomly. Hockey, obviously.
yeah. There's a lot
Uh
of hockey talent that comes from.
rum production is great. We love the rum production. We support. We and fishing. So one of my dad's cousins in Newfoundland is actually a ship captain, so that's pretty fucking cool.
There's some real good seafood. I haven't been out there yet, but even in parts of the States, you'll get PEI, scallops and stuff like that. You'll see it on the menu listed as such. Like that's a testament to the fact that it's known for its quality out there. Like
Newfoundland
you're
and lobster,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah. We just randomly keep coming to like Canadian geography. This is like the second time we've mentioned Newfoundland in an episode. It's a lot of Newfoundland discussion.
Yeah, yeah, we talked about their accents earlier. I'm learning more and more about Canada every day.
I mean, you know what? We're an interesting place. I think the thing is, and maybe it's just like it's like that in places in the U.S. too, though. And I've had this experience. Like, you go to cities that, if you go to places that aren't like the traditional sort of tourist stops, or the traditional sort of places to go, you're always
Mhm.
gonna find really cool people and really cool stuff. Like, every tiny ass town and place has something interesting. You just have to be willing to try and find it. So, and I don't know, my parents always, like, when they travel, they tend to be very open minded about just going places. And so I've kind of always tried to be like that too, like, and try new things and whatever. And obviously, I want to go to the big cities and the big things, but also I think road trips are fun for that also because you can kind of just discover interesting stuff. And there's a lot of not interesting things, don't get me wrong. I am the first to tell you that driving through Alberta at times is like, wow, I hate it here. But there's also lots of redeeming qualities, you know?
Can only imagine, like as someone who has been in a vehicle going from eastern Kansas to Denver, Colorado, I know that driving through the plains sometimes it feels like a Twilight Zone episode where you're like, I haven't seen a landmark in 3 hours. I think I might have actually died 2 hours ago. And I think I'm just reliving my final memories in a loop over and over and over.
Yeah, that's it's so when I used to drive from Saskatoon back home, it's like about 5.5 hours, but I mean, I also never stopped because why would I stop? Unless it was just to pee or I needed gas. But it was such a long, it's like, it's not that long. 5.5 hours isn't really that long, but it's just like there is nothing for hours and hours and hours. It's better when you're in Saskatchewan, weirdly. The road is straighter and flatter, but, well, not really flatter, but straighter. But there's more like towns that you go through, so it like breaks up the drive. But once you pass the Alberta border, it's a long friggin' time until you get to Hannah, Alberta, which is where Nickelback is from.
Hey, I didn't know they were Albertans.
Yeah, they're from Hannah. Dusty ass
Never heard of
town. Don't go there. It's not worth it. Sorry to the people of Hannah. I'm not really that sorry, though.
Didn't have like a Nickelback museum or nothing like that. Like
No,
birthplace
surprising.
of Chad Kroger.
No, actually. Shockingly. But, ugh. Gross town. Anyway. It's a long time till you get there from the Saskatchewan border, and then, like, you're kind of like, well, shit, I really have to go to the bathroom, so I guess I'm stopping in Hannah. But there's really not much. They just got its importance recently, so
That's crazy. I thought there would be
there's a
no stone
population. No,
untouched
no. There's a
by Tim
population
Hortons.
requirement. There's a population requirement to get its importance.
I wonder how high it is.
Some.
I think there's some chains where it's like once they get it, it feels like they it legitimizes it as a town.
Yeah,
Like
usually, like,
I've seen some of that in certain small
A&W is
towns.
like the
Like, oh,
first
we
one
got
in
this,
Canada.
we're a real thing now.
I would say in Canada, A&W is that one because every small town will have an A&W before they have a Timmy's or they have a McDonald's. A&W
A&W
comes
shocks me
A&W
because
comes to
like
you when you're like 2,000 people ish.
A&W shocked me because like it was originally an American company, and they split into like another separate Canadian entity, and like it wasn't really that big a deal in the States. Like they had the root beer,
It's
and I think
huge
there was a
here.
couple of standalone restaurants. A&W is fucking everywhere in Canada, and it's genuinely surprising because like I thought like A&W was like a dying brand you see in like Midwestern malls that nobody really attends anymore, and
Yeah.
no, they're all over the place here. There's like three I can walk to from my apartment.
Whereas like something like Burger King really never got big. Like we have them here and there's a decent number of them, but they're not
Yeah,
busy.
Wendy's too. Like they're
Oh,
hard to
Wendy's
find
is
out here.
depends. Wait here. No, there's Wendy's here. Well, Wendy's is my favorite. We definitely eat a lot of
Yeah.
Wendy's here. Canadian Wendy's is better because the beef is fucking better here. American beef is gross. I'm sorry.
That bird of beef.
Yeah, like actually, it's the one time where Homerism it pays because American beef is kind of gross. Not gonna lie, tastes weird.
Wendy's in Hawaii was pretty good. Everywhere else I've had it was kind of not it. Sorry, Wendy's. I know you were planning on sponsoring us, but
Yeah, I could have fucked with the cheesy cheddar burger there, Wendy's. Come on. No, I every time I've been to like an American like burger place, even just mostly fast food. To be fair, like if I've gone to like pubs and stuff or somewhere where it's like a good quality burger, it's different. But like fast food in particular, because they're obviously using probably the cheapest beef possible. American beef definitely tastes different. Like, or steaks. I don't love steak in the States. American beef tastes different. It's because literally you do feed the cows different shit, and it does taste different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's places where you can get the good shit, but it's like
it's a way
you
more
kind of gotta
corn.
be
It's a way more
the
corn
right
heavy
joint.
diet for cows in America, and you can tell because it tastes like it, and it's not very good.
That's how I feel about Canadian whiskey, where I'm like, this is too much corn content for me. I cannot have my whiskey this
I'm
sweet.
guessing you're not a bourbon guy.
I like bourbon. Bourbon is for me like the happy medium as far as like the sweetness goes. It's like enough. It's like not quite enough corn that it feels oversweet, but I feel like
Right.
when I've had Canadian whiskey, it's felt like a little bit like cloying. If that makes any
Depends
sense.
on the one. If it's more of a, if it has a bit more rye in it, like say like 40 Creek, where it's a bit more rye, then you're
Yeah.
probably fine.
Oh, I
But
fuck with rye. Yeah.
like Canadian rye whiskey, if you can get just like if you get straight Canadian rye whiskey, is really
Yeah.
freaking good. Like
Yeah.
Crown Royal Northern Harvest rye is really good. It won tons of awards. Like it's an incredible rye.
I'm shocked that Crown Royal has a rye because I figured all they did was like the standard, and then like they have like a
No,
green apple that tastes like a Jolly Rancher, which is
yeah,
really jarring to
it's
drink.
shockingly good though.
It was too much for me, and I say that as somebody who enjoys Jolly Ranchers. I was like, I never wanted one in liquid form. That was kind of overwhelming, to be honest. My dad likes that shit though. Like he loves it.
I like it just on like small occasions, like
Yeah.
once or twice here and there for novelty purposes. Yeah, no, so they're from Manitoba, Crown Royal originally, I think. And they grow a ton of rye there. So their rye is actually very good. It's called the Northern Harvest Rye, and it's really good. 40 Creek Rye is also very good. There's tons of really good like straight rye whiskeys from Canada, and those are better. Canadian whiskey is eh. But I will say that I prefer it to like, I've never liked Scotch, but eventually when my Scotch friend comes on the podcast, she'll help us with that.
Kind of fuck with Scotch. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of do.
Uh,
Even some of the really smoky ones, I was surprised that I enjoyed that.
so you'll love
Genuinely.
talking to Pamela when we eventually have her, the girls from Dramfine, on our podcast. But my friend Pamela, her family actually is from like the Scottish Isles, and they blend whiskey where she's from. So her background, yeah, she loves Scotch.
Oh, they
I
do
do
blends.
not. Yeah, I do not like Scotch, but bourbon's probably my favorite whiskey, but I like rye as well. But Canadian whiskey is like meh. It's just that it's like also sometimes just a good like baseline drink. Sometimes I don't know, it works. It's cheap and it works. Yeah. Wow. We've digressed
Effective.
super hard. Should we just transition to All Star now? Since we're talking about liquor, we can talk about the like LeBron and Hennessy. There you go. They had.
There we go. Yeah, LeBron got the special Henny. I don't know if it's actually much different than the regular,
No,
if
it's
it's a
not.
special
It's
blend or
just.
whatever.
It's
Just
not
got his
really. I
name
don't
on it.
think. Yeah, probably. From what I understand.
I want to get some for the pod. I haven't seen it at a store here, but if
Oh,
I
really?
do, if I do, that might be the wine of the week. It might be a
We'll have to do a
goddamn
Henny.
Hennessy.
Some goddamn Hennessy. I've seen it here. I don't know if it's around anymore though. Like it was a pretty special edition shit. It might be gone. To
Hey,
be
cognac's
honest,
made from grapes. It's basically wine.
we should do grappa. We should have a grappa episode.
There's some ideas that are like wine adjacent. Where like if we did like, I don't know if you know Metaxa.
No, but I'm interested.
It's if Giannis ever has like another 50-point game.
Well, we're not doing
So it's
Uzo because
like,
I'll vomit, and we don't want that.
oh no, it's not Uzo. It's not Uzo. Thank God.
Good. Yeah.
Metaxa is a mixture of, I think it's a mixture of wine and cognac, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
I have to double check. But it is fucking phenomenal. I bake with it sometimes. I enjoy drinking it. It is that good shit. It is extremely Greek. Like very, it's a blend of spirits and muscat wine.
Okay. Yeah. I'm into
Says
it. Let's go.
Wikipedia, aged in oak barrels. So it does
Hell
have
yeah.
wine in it. It has like a star rating, basically.
I
The
fuck with it.
7-star, the 5-star is great. 7 stars phenomenal. I think there's a 12 or some shit. Never had it, but I'm sure it's dope. But it's very good. It's very Greek. It's that good shit. Shout out to Amygdalia. Shout out to Athens. Shout out to my people.
I'm into it. I hate this. I hate that. I absolutely like will die on this hill. I hate the taste, the smell, the existence of anise. So like, black licorice of any form, awful. Throw it in the garbage. Uzo, black sambuca, fire it into the sun. Fucking burn it. I don't know. Do whatever. Get out of my face.
I don't love Sambuca, to be honest. I don't love it.
All of it's disgusting. Can't do it.
Yep.
Fennel? I don't even like fennel. I can handle it in very small doses in like Italian sausages, things like that. But if it's like too, like I love rye bread, but rye bread that has caraway seeds, fuck that. Get it out of here. Like, throw it in the garbage immediately. Nope. Hard pass. My mom always insisted that I made her this anise, like, soap. And I had to wear a
Mm.
mask because I hated the smell so much. It, like, makes me want to vomit. Something about it is just terrible to me. So we'll never be doing ouzo on this podcast, but we'll branch into grape and wine adjacent things. So, I mean, I would love to do a grappa episode.
Grappa is something, man. Like it's similar in maybe not in flavor to ouzo, but in terms of usage. Like if you break that out after dinner, we're getting lit, and we are not leaving this restaurant until 1 a.m.
What's funny is I've had some
closed.
grappas that was like a little sweeter, and they're like, we're good. They were boozy as hell, but like they were good. But then the Ruffino grappa was like just straight freaking liquor, and I was like, it almost tasted like tequila, and I was like, ugh, nope, this is too much. Hard pass, get it out of here. Can't do it. But we brought back a blueberry grappa that was really good. Vinsanto was also. That
sounds incredible.
It was so good. Incredible. Vinsanto is also amazing. We should do Vinsanto. We'll just get absolutely fucked up. If we ever feel like,
you know what?
If we ever feel like spending money. If I ever feel like spending the money for Vinsanto, what's the problem?
I actually have some Metaxa at home right now. Speaking
Metaxa,
of,
Metaxa seems cheap, but Vinsanto is not.
Yeah. I'd be curious to do a wine adjacent liqueur-ish situation because it might get festive in here.
Or like Lillet. Lillet is another good one because it's kind of wine, but not really wine. There's tons of cocktails you could do with that. But yeah, we're hoping to do a crossover episode with the ladies at Dram Fine, so hopefully we can do some whiskey and wine talk.
I'm curious to see what whiskey they would pick for us because, like I said,
I hate Scotch.
I'm fairly familiar with Scotch. My blind spot is Irish whiskey. Like I don't know shit about Irish whiskey at all. Like I used to work in a liquor store.
Pamela's Scottish, so don't ask me those questions.
Yeah, Scotch for me, I enjoy quite a bit because there's a wide range of like flavors and shit. So you got like your super smoky ones like Lefroy and stuff like that, and you've got like your more mild, like Auchentoshan, which is like pretty balanced and even.
I've challenged her with finding me a Scotch that I like because thus far I've not. Because the challenge is my dad likes everything to be super smoky and super. He loves that peat flavor too, so like it tastes like smoked earth, and I'm not into that at all.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
My dad has a very particular palate,
super smoky
and it's
joint.
horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised by how much I like the smoky joints because like it's a little. Some of them aren't quite overwhelming as I would describe them, but there's some that are smoky enough that like I gotta drink that shit slow. Like that glass might take me a good minute for a reasonable size pour, not even for a big pour. I might be drinking that shit for like the next hour.
Fair enough. Well, anyways, I guess we should probably I don't even have a good segue, but we should probably talk about NBA All-Star since that, unless you have any final thoughts on WN free agency. W free agency.
Speaking of smoke, how about Jimmy Butler, the Miami Heat?
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, he's really just...
That was a terrible segue. I apologize. That was awful. That was awful.
Into it.
I tried.
I'm into it.
It was sounded better in my head. Yeah, Jimmy has been suspended 3 times now by my count.
Yeah.
We got suspended the first time for, I believe it's for the press conference, kind of saying like, oh, my joy is gone. I don't want to be here, blah, 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 blah. Second time was for missing a team flight. Third time now for walking out of either a practice or a shoot around. Something, yeah. This one's indefinite. They said minimum 5 games, but indefinitely suspended. He wants the fuck out. And the problem for that is how many teams can get him and how many teams do want him. I know that Memphis was interested, and apparently he's not interested in Memphis, which is weird because that might be his best shot at actually contending.
That was the funniest thing, is it's like everywhere but Memphis or Miami. So you'd go to Charlotte.
Why does he hate Memphis? Does he
like
not fuck with barbecue?
So you would go to Charlotte? You'd go play with LaMelo? Okay.
That's interesting. They would hate each other.
But not Memphis? Where you actually have a chance to do something?
You could play with Ja and Triple J and go out there and compete for a championship possibly this year. You could be the third, second and a half fiddle in
Most
Memphis.
Importantly, he gets to play with Yuki.
The chemistry god.
Like, come on.
Those two would love each other, too. Yeah. That's the crazy part. There's some players like Jimmy Butler would hate him. He would love Yuki. They would be best friends.
Oh, yeah. Best friends. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Zach Edey got hitting people for you? Like, come on.
Sure, why not? He's big.
Whatever.
I don't know much about Zach Edey's personality, but I do admire that he doesn't back down from people, which he shouldn't because he's
gigantic. Yeah, gigantic.
Yeah, he's enormous. He's not like
He's not dirty, but he's also not
He's
gonna
not one of
be
those
a pushover.
just big types. Like he is strong. I'm trying to avoid the really obvious comparison because he's somebody else who's abnormally tall and also like stronger than people fucking realize. But he's one of those 7 foot. He's like what 7'3"
Yeah.
ish, 4, where he's actually built like he's fucking built like he's
Gigantic.
sturdy.
He's gigantic in every possible way.
Sturdy.
I'm very happy he's translated better to the NBA than I thought, which has been nice to see.
I figured on the right team, if you have a team with good perimeter defenders who can kind of funnel them toward him, and like Memphis is a team that kind of fits the bill. If you put him on fucking, let's say Charlotte or somebody like that, it might be a goddamn disaster. But a team like a Memphis or New York or a team that's got multiple like wings who can defend and get into people's bodies and stop penetration, he could look good in that kind of environment. If you put him on Phoenix, it would be a
absolute
not to disparage
disaster.
him as a player, but I don't think it would be a good fit. I'm not saying it would be a disaster. I'm sure he'd be better than Nurkic has been this year, but it wouldn't be as natural a fit.
He has shocking mobility for his size.
He's worked on that. Like he's dropped weight. He's tried to get quicker. Like he's to his credit, he's worked on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyways, All-Stars. Yeah. So we have just the starters so far. They're the ones who've been announced. We don't know who the reserves are yet. Curious to see if LaMelo Ball ends up as a reserve or not, given he did not make it speaking of the Hornets, as a starter. So for the Eastern Conference starters, we have Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, Karl-Anthony Towns, Jason Tatum, and Giannis. And then for the Western Conference starters, we've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Stephen Curry, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James. And no real surprises as far as, for the most part, I think. I don't know. At least the East front court was probably like the least surprising possible, especially with Jason.
Yeah, I think the East. I think they nailed the whole thing for the East, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any pick there that seems particularly shocking or controversial. Everybody that they picked in the Eastern Conference has been balling the fuck out. Giannis has been. I know the Bucks have kind of flown under the radar, but they're like 4 seed now.
I mean, that's why he won our Fine Work Award, right? He's been low key just crushing it.
Putting up a casual 32 and 12 or whatever the fuck he's averaging now, and 5 assists, and nobody's even noticed because like the bar is that high for him now. Like he's that good. He's that good. Donovan Mitchell, you can't not have somebody on the Cavs, and he's very much still the franchise player. Even as guys like Mobley, and even guys like Mobley has improved, I think you got to say Mitchell's the guy. Still, he's the one who's taking all the shots in the game.
A little surprised Mobley didn't have a chance as a starter, but I also think he'll probably make it as a reserve.
Yeah, I think it's just because the guard forward split. I think maybe people didn't want to put Mobley over like Tatum or Giannis, who were the 2 forwards who made it.
He's a bit like Scotty Barnes, where he's been great, but you also need they're young. They're gonna have to pay their dues.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, who would you leave off, right? Like, he's been...
Yeah.
Sometimes you see, like, the all-star debate. They're like, how'd you leave this guy off? How'd you leave that guy off? And it's like, well, who would you remove for him? At the end of the day, there's only 12 spots. And there are guys...
No, actually. This year, there's 15. Yeah. There's a real 15 spots this year.
Fuck. That's actually great.
Yeah,
but
because of the way the new format is.
But still, as with any year, you have players who are having all-star caliber seasons who might not necessarily be all-stars just because there's more guys who are also having slightly better seasons.
I agree.
And so you might have a guy averaging 25 and 5 or something as an example, which is an all-star season most years, but there might be 3 other guys who are just slightly better, and so they don't make it, which is tough because they're all-star caliber players, but not all-stars.
And I generally agree with you. It's like, who would you leave off?
Right. I think Mobley will make it, though, as a reserve. I think he'll get it.
I would think so, especially since Cleveland's really been the best team, although they've started to show a little shakiness. And in Ziller's newsletter this morning, in Good Morning It's Basketball, he talked about how Cleveland had the easiest schedule to this point. And so it'll be interesting to see. Like, their February, well, it's a short number of games because it's a short month. They're very hard games. They play, like, the Celtics twice. Like, they have to play, like, a bunch of really hard teams. So it'll be interesting to see how they pull through on that. I think I agree, though, the Eastern Conference All-Stars, in particular, like the front court, and New York, because Cat's been balling, obviously, in New York. It's been pretty seamless fit. I'm actually very happy that that's worked out, just because, obviously, like, the Tibbs and Cat situation was kind of shitty, but I think it's shown that both of them kind of grew up in different ways and kind of dealt with it.
It's very wholesome seeing them come back together and talk about how they've grown as people since the last time they were around each other.
Yeah. I think
Also,
it's
I'd
especially
be. Oh, go ahead.
I think it's especially heartening with or sorry, not with Cat, with Tibbs because you don't necessarily. He's always portrayed as this coach who doesn't bend. Like he doesn't bend to his. He doesn't. He's Tibbs. He does what Tibbs does, right? He's always portrayed that way. But I think that this has shown that like no, people can grow and change too, and that he has changed. There's a lot of things in New York that are different about his previous stops. Like he does play his starters incredible like heavy minutes, especially in the playoffs. But I think he's probably learned a lot of lessons, especially in Minnesota. He failed pretty hard there, and you can't fail without learning at least one or two lessons, right? And the culture in New York seems very positive. So I think it just shows too that ultimately probably the biggest lesson is that you shouldn't have GM and coach power in most cases. It just doesn't work, especially in the NBA. That's probably the main takeaway, frankly. But Tibbs obviously I think learned some stuff too, and like it shows that those hard-nosed coaches can still be the right coach for young, these players who have, they're young and they're not the same, right? They're not your Taj Gibsons anymore. So I think that the Cat situation's been really fun for that reason. Jalen Brunson, I think, also ultimately kind of had to make it. He's been having a great season, and obviously the Knicks have like a solid one of the best voting bases you're ever going to have in the NBA, so that also probably helps a little bit. But
I think speaking of the Tibbs thing, Jeff Teague was talking on his podcast. There's a bit of like a misconception. He was kind of dispelling that about how people think about Tibbs, and he was saying, I think people think of him as this like hard ass. So no, he gives you a lot of freedom on the court, like more than I think people realize. And he's kind of letting Towns do his thing. As long as you handle your business on defense and play hard and shit, he'll
Tibbs
give you
has
some leeway.
Tibbs has like non-negotiable things that you have to do for him, and as long as you do those things, he'll give you a little bit of leverage. Like he knows that Cat is an outstanding offensive player. He takes dumb shots and makes dumb fouls, but at the end of the day, he's an incredible offensive player. However, so he can overlook those mistakes that are annoying, right? The Cat turnovers, the Cat whatever. Him being a dummy all of a sudden in the post where he just charges over somebody and you're like, what the hell was that?
Some very silly offensive fouls,
right?
from
Like
time to
just
time. I've had to
kind
live
of
with
an
them. I've had to
like
live
kind
with
of an idiot. Tibbs can live with that as long as you do the other things that he expects of you. And to my eye, from what I've seen of the Knicks, to be honest, I haven't watched a ton, but he's done that, right? Like at least he's not the greatest defender, but he's playing really hard. He's trying really hard. He's putting in that effort that he never did in Minnesota when Tibbs needed him to do that. And so now that's where Cat's grown, right? And so Tibbs is willing to be like, great, you're doing that. You learned. I'm going to go easy on you in terms of like, I learned that I have to handle you maybe a different way too, that I can handle certain other players. Like, I don't think Tibbs is an asshole by any means. No one's ever called him that, really, for the most part. He's a difficult coach, but I think he genuinely does care about his people, so he's going to be a good dude. He's very loyal, right? I mean, he's kept Rick Brunson around all these years.
Taj Gibson has been on 55 fucking teams.
Yeah, but even like from a coaching perspective, his assistants have coached with him for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, Tibbs is stuck with him, with his assistants. I mean, Rick Brunson has all kinds of issues that probably would have kept him from getting jobs in other places in some cases that Tibbs has been willing to stand, for better or worse, stand by him for, right? So I think that it's just about
Rose too.
Yeah, right? Yeah. There's just a lot of loyalty aspect, I think, that's there. That's really interesting to me. And so I'm happy to see that this like Cat situation is working out because that was kind of interesting. And I do think that because things just I do think Jimmy was a different factor. And now that a player like Jimmy's not there and the locker room in the Knicks has players like Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson and like the Nova boys and people like that who just have this like lightheartedness about them, who take that hard coaching from Tibbs, but turn it into like something entertaining as well, right? That kind of helps as well. And it's fun.
I'd be a bad Knicks fan if I didn't recognize the fact that Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson are the first pair of Knicks to start in the same All-Star game since Clyde Frazier and Earl Monroe in 1975.
I love Clyde Frazier so much.
This is when my parents were children.
Hilarious.
I am in my 30s.
Yep. In 1975, you said?
1975.
My mother was
disco was still popping.
My mother was a teenager. She was 15. That's crazy. Yeah. Crazy.
My parents were not even preteens. My dad was about to turn 11.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun to see the Knicks kind of back up.
My grandfather was probably about the age I am. Maybe younger. He might have been like 31.
That's crazy.
It's been a minute since we were
My dad was 10. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough to think about.
Yeah. That's crazy. What do you think about the Western All-Stars? Just as a hard pivot from that.
It's definitely it skews a little bit older than the East All Stars for sure.
The Western Conference, for the most part, outside of Shea and Jokic, feels a bit like a legacy award.
A little bit.
Yeah, the fan vote is definitely a legacy situation, because if any of those stars were in the East, they would have gotten the same amount of votes. I don't think it's a
Yeah,
bad... LeBron, I don't think should be an all-star starter anymore, frankly.
I think Braun, Steph, and Durant are all clearly still All Stars,
But not quite
but
starters.
I'm a little surprised. I'd have to think a little bit hard about the actual choices for starters, but like I'm surprised I
Yeah,
didn't see like Ant Edwards
that's
starting.
that's where I was at, too. Like, Ant or freaking Wemby not being a starter is interesting.
Yeah, Wemby's been my God.
I mean, even Luka's not really played much, to be fair. But
Yeah, he's missed more games than I think I even realized. He's only played
yeah,
22 games so far,
yeah,
but he's fucking Luka.
yeah, yeah,
AD even not an
yeah.
all-star starter. And he's averaging 26 and like 12. He's been pretty awesome. He's the leading scorer on the Lakers over LeBron.
Yeah, it was a bit. It's definitely less young stars, but I guess to be fair, the Western Conference is kind of where all the old stars are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely still fans showing difference for those legends while they're still in the game, which
But
is
yeah,
fine, but it's also a bit weird. I'm sure Jokic is like great, cool, thank you for this, but also like I'd rather not be there.
he's gonna play his like, 10, 15 minutes, throw a couple
And
alley-oops to some of the
I
other
get it.
all-stars
Like if
and
the All
chill.
Star game, he's actually the optimal player for the like whole. If the All Star game had stakes, he would be
Mhm,
better off. Because this book
mhm,
of the Jokic book from Mike Singer that I've been reading, it talks about how like he cares, but there has to be stakes. Like
right.
the game has to kind of matter. He doesn't like. It's not that he doesn't love the game because he does, but there has to be like a good reason to do everything he does, right? And he's not, while his plays are flashy, like you see these assists that are crazy, right? Like off the back from the back of his head, or he nutmegs a guy or whatever. Like he's got these crazy assists, but almost all of them come within gameplay, and he's not actually trying to make the flashy play.
Hmm.
He's just making a play. And so like a game like the All-Star game, like he's not really made for that kind of like game where he's just, you run, you dunk, you shoot from three, whatever, right? It's all about the flashy bullshit. He actually wants to play a game. And same with Luka. They've both talked about this. Like they're just too competitive, frankly. And not to say that
Yep.
other all-stars aren't competitive, but they didn't grow up in this culture of having this kind of a game, right?
Right.
Like I think there's an aspect of like American player, not that it makes them take it less seriously. I don't want to say that. But it just like it's about the entertainment value, and also just
Hmm.
like there's this like a one on, even just like the AAU culture being very like just you're about showing off yourself, right? It's about the team, but it's about you because you're being scouted. It's about that whole situation. Whereas I think like there's a bit of an element of just there's a little bit more selfishness, frankly. It's like not a bad thing. I don't mean to say that in a derogatory way necessarily, but it's just like the best way to describe it, frankly, that comes with it, right? Like you're more likely to see two teammates go one on one, and those, of course, are like American players or North American players. I suspect Shea would do the same thing, right? It's not
Yeah.
special to
I,
it's
I,
a North American thing. But I also just think that like with players like from especially from the Balkans, because it's just such a serious culture that it's like, what are we doing? Like, why am I here?
I think also if you're not a player particularly well suited to a run and
Dunking.
dunk show, that you
Yeah.
might not necessarily be that excited about the run and dunk
Yeah.
show. I
Agreed. No,
feel
I
like
agree.
the
That's the
the
thing.
rim grazer dunk package probably isn't like the most thrilling thing in the world for them
Like
or
both
for
of
the
them
audience.
both of them can throw great passes. Like I remember the
Yeah,
one All-Star game when like Jokic finally threw a lob for LeBron, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is like the greatest thing I've ever seen."
that's a dream. That's a dream.
Right? And that's just it, because it's like I just want to see Jokic throw lob passes for an entire All-Star game. I don't care if he does
Hmm.
anything else, because
Hmm.
like he now gets to play with all of the best dunkers in the league. Like I want to see
Right.
that, right? But he also doesn't really play along because he's
Some
like,
of
this is just
these, some of
yeah,
those.
right. But he's also not trying to make a flashy pass
Mm,
ever, and so it's not in his bag to just do it for the sake of it. He does it because like that's the play to make, right?
right.
And he's just there for shits and giggles, basically. He's there because he got told to, low-key.
I think he enjoys it more now than he used to, though. I think the
Well, he
last
enjoys
couple,
I
he
think
had a little more fun with it.
I think he enjoys the camaraderie of the
Yeah.
All-Stars rather more
Yeah.
than the game itself, because
Yeah.
him and Westbrook have been homies for like a lot longer than people think.
Man,
Like
I didn't even realize. I didn't even
no,
realize.
so Jokic is. I was following. I sound like a Jokic hipster here. Not trying to be like that person, but I started kind of following the Nuggets like seriously around like 2018 when they started to kind of really be on their like rise. And Jokic was becoming more and more of this like player where you're like, okay, like there's something here. And his first All-Star game, him and Westbrook, there was like reports that him and Westbrook were like best friends at his first All-Star game. And it was just like I couldn't really tell if they were fake or like what the deal was, because I'm like, that's weird, but okay. Because I think that All-Star game had a lot of weird tension because Westbrook and Katie had to play on the same team or something, like, or against each other. Like, it was just like something there. But it was just funny that like him and Jokic were like besties. And they've been besties for like a long time. Like, they've actually like legit just been friends. And it's such a weird connection. But like, I think Jokic likes the camaraderie of the All-Stars more than he likes the game itself, if that makes sense. Like, again, I think he understands like that, you know, he's there for the fans, like, and he gets that. I don't think he hates All-Star. I don't think he thinks it's like stupid necessarily. I just don't think that he is built to necessarily play along to the show, like the game itself. Sorry, it's gonna be 3-on-3, right? Or is it just two smaller teams?
That's a good question.
I might have misread
When I looked it up, I
format.
didn't see anything about the
Okay, maybe it's just
team
smaller. I was
size.
just breaking them up into teams, but maybe in a smaller
It just says
team
4 teams in
situation.
3 games, but it doesn't say how many dudes will be on each team.
Okay.
Like, I'm not seeing it on the NBA.com article about it, which is weird because you think they would they'd mention that. Well, there's 24 All-Stars, so I guess it would be 6 players per team. I guess is how that would work.
Okay, it's just mini teams.
Yeah, no, it's still 12,
5-on-5.
12 per conference, so it's still 24 All-Stars. They haven't moved up to 30 yet, but
Oh, I thought
yeah,
they could.
no, yeah, 6-person teams, I guess.
Still 5-on-5, I think it looks like.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, they would say. I feel like they would say otherwise if it was 3-on-3.
I don't know why I thought it was 3-on-3. Maybe I'm rivaled
It
in
would
my
make more
head.
sense given the numbers, but
Yeah. I thought maybe a 3-on-3 game would be more interesting to see a player like Jokic or Luka in, even because there's just a lot more passing in 3-on-3. There kind of has to be.
It also means that like dudes are gonna be playing the whole game rather than clocking in for 5 minutes and
Which will help. Which would help players like Jokic also, because I think that being able to like, there's also there is, I guess, more stakes in the sense, talking about the format, there's more stakes in the sense that like it's a shorter game, so you kind of have to go harder faster, so it might be more interesting to a player like Jokic, maybe. I don't know. Again, I don't want to ever like, reading this book, I absolutely understand this trope about him not liking basketball is so stupid, because there's no way you can be that good and not like it. But he just also has a very healthy work-life balance. And
yeah, I think he just doesn't like being famous. I think the idea that he doesn't love basketball is ridiculous. Nobody gets that good at something without loving it.
No.
Unless you're like literally fucking like bound to do it by
to do it.
You know what I mean? Like they don't fucking chain him up and make him hoop, right? You know what I mean? Nobody gets that good at shooting the goddamn ball without that.
I think he
I think he doesn't like being a celebrity.
Yeah, I also think he's himself. To be honest, from like reading this book, like he just kind of is who he is. Like he's kind of his own person, and like he values certain things, and those things aren't really the NBA stardom, right? Like he wants to be very good at what he does. He wants to win. You can't watch him play and not say he's not competitive. But NBA stardom is not what he's after. He's not seeking the fame and the fortune. He's just doing it because he wants to win. And I mean, the money certainly does not hurt him, because he has horses to buy.
Not a red carpet guy.
He's got horses to buy. He doesn't care about.
I got date a celebrity guy necessarily, but
no.
He go out there and fucking hoop, man.
And not to disparage any player that is necessarily. Like if that's what you want, fucking go for it.
Hey, if I was 20 and a millionaire,
why not?
What do you think I'd be doing?
Right.
Who is the Hollywood it girl? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
I think Americans
are understandable.
I think the North American, the NBA fan, which is really just North Americans, primarily Americans, is so accustomed to also the American culture of like you have to eat, sleep, live, and breathe your job, and it's that Kobe mentality also, right? It's so deeply saturated.
It's a Mamba mentality.
It's just so deeply saturated into everything, because at the end of the day, the Mamba mentality is basically just Protestant work. Called the traditional American Protestant work ethic.
Shit, like
pull yourself up by your bootstraps bullshit, right? So
work will set you free.
Yeah.
Your value is your labor type situation.
Yeah.
Love me some labor history.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. So I think that there's just so much of that kind of like that lens that people look at players like Jokic through, and they're like, well, why don't? It's like almost like that poking me, like, well, do something. It's like, well, be a normal star. And it's like, he cares about certain things because he left Nike to go to a different company so he could get a signature shoe. Like he
Hmm.
certainly cares about shit. He just
Hmm.
also is very sensitive to how people treat him. Like
Hmm.
he's equally as mercurial as other stars in the sense that like he has a certain integrity and a certain like value system, and if he doesn't feel like you fit that or you've earned his trust, he ain't gonna rock with you. Like Mike Singer talked about the fact that like in order for him to like Jokic to actually sit down with him in this book, he had to go talk to a lot of people. Like
I bet.
he traveled his ass all around Serbia talking to everyone. He talked to Jokic's brothers, his dad, his like coaches, every single person that Jokic has ever known.
I bet the screening with his brothers was an adventure. I'm sure
And
Strahinja put
then
him through some stress.
yeah, yeah. And then Jokic is finally like, cool, all right, like now we can talk because you've talked to the right people. Like you understand me now. And it's like it's not that he's like a dick or he just like doesn't care. It's just that he's very like he knows what he's kind of Ron Swanson-esque in the sense of like he knows what he's about, son.
Hmm.
Like, you know?
Yeah,
And you gotta respect it. Actually, he really is the
protective
Ron
of his space and shit.
he's
Like
really the Ron Swanson of the NBA.
if he, yeah,
Has like niche
doing
hobbies,
doing horse stuff is his like
woodworking.
building stuff out of wood. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's got his niche hobby. He cares about family. He cares about like being private. Like, yeah, he's really
yeah.
the Ron Swanson of the NBA.
If you want him to go to some celebrity appearance, he will schedule that shit for the 32nd of whatever
March.
month or some shit.
Yeah, 32nd of March. Or
Yep.
March 30. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or he'll go to the club and if he's gonna endorse something, he's gonna really like it, and he'll get fucked up and dance. Like when Ron drinks the snake juice. Jokic has a dance like
That's a dancing
just like
machine right
that
there. That's a
right
dancing
there.
machine.
Yeah, so he likes
Hey,
to party. He likes to party like Ron.
hey, go to
So
put him in the bar and put many men on. But that being the song that apparently that Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar and Many
no,
Men by 50 Cent being two of his favorite songs is one of my favorite little bits of trivia. Like I think DeAndre Jordan I think might have requested it
yeah, he
at a
did.
recent game and he's
Yeah.
poking fun at him. That shit is that's great. That's great.
His relationship with DJ is the cutest shit in the world, by the way.
Honestly, DJ said that Jokic called him a black Serbian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like part of their handshake is like the kissing that you like Serbians do when they greet.
Mhm.
It's like DJ talked about how
Very
like
European.
about how serious it was when Jokic is like, he'll like kiss him on the cheek or whatever. Like this is a big fucking deal. Like don't blow it. It's so funny.
Yeah, I had to adapt to that when I moved to Italy as a kid. I was like, oh, everyone is kissing my face all of a sudden. This is very different from a
What?
stern handshake.
Right? Yeah. It's only second to the Westbrook and Jokic like bromance that's going on right now. But that's actually been really fun. That Ziller article about it was really cool. About just there was a neat perspective on it that they're really like a fellowship. They're like two of the players who can truly
Yeah.
understand each other the most, which we kind of talked about too, even on our last episode, where it's like you they almost have like the qualities of Westbrook that are the best are things that you'd normally see in a five, and the best things about Jokic are things you normally see in a one, and they just have this
Mhm.
like kindred spirit about being able to do both, and the fact that both of them can just like get triple doubles like it's nothing and like do it together, which is even wilder. Because usually like Westbrook, he got rebounds at the expense of players like Steven Adams.
Uh, there's a part of me that's like, oh man, what would they been like if they both played together like in their respective primes? But there's another part
Yeah,
of me that's like, I think they met each other at the right part of
in
their
their career.
careers. Like
I
this
don't
was the
think.
right timing for them to see each other.
I think Jokic would have been fine
Hmm.
with Prime Westbrook. I just don't know that Prime Westbrook would have been fine with a player like Jokic.
I don't know. I mean,
Well,
he
it's hard to
managed to
know.
coexist with KD when he was a young like shooting star. I feel like it might have been maybe there would have been like this worked really well for 2 seasons, but after like season three, it was like, hey man, I gotta have my own team type shit. But I
Yeah,
do feel like there might have been there would have been at least a season and a half of that shit being just fucking magical. I would have
it
loved to
would
see
have
that.
worked. I agree. Like I think it would have worked. Obviously, they're too
Yeah,
good for it to not. But
yeah.
I do think that you're right that they met each other at the right time.
Hmm.
Particularly Westbrook. I think that Westbrook kind of needed the Nuggets. Like it's not even about Jokic entirely, it's the Nuggets. Like I think Westbrook needed a coach like Malone and a superstar to play with like Jokic because as much as LeBron and Jokic do have similar skill sets, really, they do. They're great passers, great rebounders, whatever. They're very different people as stars, right? Like, it's about LeBron, and if you are disappointing, LeBron will let you know. And Jokic will also do that, but in a very different way. He's certainly not going to do it on Twitter. He's certainly not going to do it publicly. And he's maybe not even going to do it necessarily. Like, he's going to come to you in some other way, right? I think he's more of a vocal leader than people give him credit for, but he's kind of a different type of superstar that every player who's come to play with him, like Aaron Gordon talked about it, like he's just a different kind of superstar. And I think that Westbrook needs that kind of presence that just like, wow. Because I don't think Westbrook is a selfish player. No. I just think that he's never actually played with a player who's been...
His teammates fucking love him.
Yeah, because the thing is like he's not a selfish player. He just does dominate the ball, but in ways that can work with a player like Jokic, who he still touches every freaking pass. Like Kevin Garnett was saying, like he touches every ball. He's influencing every play. But that also doesn't mean that someone like Westbrook can't coexist with that. And they can both touch the ball a lot. They can both do what they do best. And they're both just, like in Ziller's article, he talked about just how they're both ultimately two of the smartest players, right? And they're gonna, like, they operate on a wavelength that, like, it's different. Like, they're more similar than they are different in some ways, which is hilarious because one's a point guard and one's a center. But they're way more similar than they are different. And they fit just, like, perfectly. And you can tell how protective Jokic is of Westbrook. It's really cute. It's adorable.
It's honestly so wholesome.
Yeah, because he's like, no, like, other people didn't understand him. Like, we know what it takes to make it work. And, like, unlike other teams who've said that, but never actually happened, they actually mean it, because it actually is working.
I think the Clippers are kind of an underrated part in this. Because, like, the Lakers thing didn't really work out the way people hoped it would. He kind of found a little bit of freedom, a little bit of his old game with the Clippers under Tyronn Lue. And I think that early adjustment period in Denver, it looked a little bit, whatever. But I think he'd proven in Clipperland that he could still be a valuable contributor to a playoff contender. And I think him and Jokic kind of have a bond in that they're both, like you mentioned before, they both have very unique and like kind of hard to place games where you have to sort of, to get the most out of them, you kind of have to bend the system in a way that maximizes their talent.
They're both kind of a system unto themselves.
Yeah, and they found ways over the course of the first month or two of the season to overlap those two sort of heliocentric systems into like a binary star to stay on the astronomy tip, where they're kind of both additive and not subtractive, which is really cool to see, because there's a lot of players who have been asked to fit in similar ways who have not been able to make that work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, everyone thought, okay, Westbrook's going to Houston to play with his friend James. Great, that's gonna work. Didn't really work out. Did for a little while. Didn't really work out. He was really good in Washington with Bradley Beal and them, and that was fine, but then the Lakers came and poached him, and that did not work out, because even though he does kind of fit next to us, he can fit next to a player like LeBron and whatever, like you'd think in theory, right? On paper, it works. But, again, like, even personality, like, LeBron is LeBron, so it's just difficult to play with a player like LeBron, and especially in LA, for the Lakers. And it worked really well with the Clippers. Like, him and Harden got on great. Him and Kawhi and Paul George, like, they all worked. But even with the Clippers, he had moments where it all kind of came crashing back down to, like, the previous Westbrook stops, right? Where it was like, he's just not the same player anymore. And then, yeah, he goes to a team like Denver. And I think, first of all, like, Michael Malone is a very, like, he's the kind of coach, I think, that, like, players like Westbrook and stuff also can connect to, because they're both just extremely passionate people. And there's probably going to be some yelling, and there's going to be a lot of emotion.
He's a firebrand. I remember him
100%.
at the post-championship parade, man.
Oh,
he was talking that shit.
Oh, what a legend.
He was talking that shit.
Well, actually, my favorite quote from him is, like, I think it was, like, the 20... Excuse me, oh my gosh. I think it was, like, the 2018-2019 season, and they'd gone on a winning streak, and the Lakers came to town, and he promised his team if they got to 10 games, he'd wear a headband at his press conference. And then when they played the Lakers that season, they beat the Lakers, and he was like, all the Lakers fans that came to the building, like, take that L on the way out, like, and just, like, he's so quotable, frankly. But I do think that earnestly, like, he's like one of those coaches. He reminds me actually a lot of Pop, in the sense of, like, they're both just, like, they do care deeply because they're not afraid to show that they care, and they're not afraid to like cry in front of the media or talk about hard things, and like because like Malone has talked a lot about like hard things that players have gone through, and like his own family. Like his daughter was at a Colorado school when there was a shooting at that school, and like he talked about that stuff. Like he's like Pop in that sense, where he's very willing to be real. And
Mhm.
Malone's had kind of a hard scrabble kind of like rise through the coaching ranks, right? Like his dad was always a good coach, but never a great one and around and whatever. But I think he connects really well to his players. And especially
The
like
one
a
player that
player.
Boogie Cousins liked, the one coach that Boogie Cousins liked, I
Yeah,
mean, the one that he
exactly.
connected with. And when he got
The only
fired,
one.
that like soured the franchise for him.
Yeah. And I do think that a player like Westbrook will always relate to a coach who just cares as much as him. Because I think the thing about Westbrook is he just wants to be around people who care as much as him. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter about your talent. He's always going to be a good dude. He just wants people to care. And I think that you can definitely say that about players like Jokic and even Murray and whoever. Like, and you're having a player like Westbrook makes you truly like respect. I don't know. He brings like he's Westbrook, right? Like he's a Hall of Famer. He's an amazing player. And then you have him playing next to a player like, and he's also gone through it. He's got that chip on his shoulder. He had some down years, right? And no one really believed in him and whatever. He went back to being an underdog, and now, you know, he's playing for a team like Denver, who probably in his prime, no one ever thought he'd ever end up in Denver. But, you know, it's actually working out really well because Denver has a superstar there who knows how to just make people better and make them fit in and create. There's a culture there that I think is really positive that like Malone and Murray and Jokic and all those players have really created there that can help a player like Westbrook, that because there's no ego, you know, they get rid of that. They bounced Bones Highland from there real freaking quick because he had an ego, right?
That's tough. Sucks. He seemed like a really likable player, and I mean, I'm sure he still is, but like that was tough. I liked seeing him
I
along them
loved,
dudes. He
yeah,
was fun
right.
to watch.
I
He was fun
liked
to
Bones,
watch.
but he became kind of a little bitch about some stuff that was really stupid, and he just, I mean, he wasn't actually so bad. It was his family too. Like people on Twitter bitching about like minutes and like just like the classic
Hmm.
kind of noise around a young player that just really sucks.
Yeah, they kind of
And
cut him from the lineup because of his, defensive flaws and stuff like that. He
and
kind of
he had some
fell out of the
attitude issues.
rotation.
He became very petty and kind of like when the Clippers traded for him and he was on the private jet with the Clippers. He was posting on Instagram about how like, well, this is how a franchise should treat you, and you know, he had some attitude issues. Like he rocked the boat a bit. But that's the thing, is that Denver's like, we're trying to win and we can't be dealing with kind of shit like this. Like our culture is too
Hmm.
strong for that. And Bones honestly hasn't really done much since. So it's
Not a big part of the Clippers rotation.
no. So, you know, the Nuggets were probably right to be like, you know what, this isn't going to be a fit, rather than ruin something good here. And then they won a championship. So, I mean, it works. But I think their culture is strong. And I think a player like Russ, who's already just very likable, he can fit in somewhere where they've almost created like a no pressure environment for him, even though there really is a lot of pressure. But it feels like there isn't a lot of pressure on Russ either at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We've gone on a lot of tangents on this episode, not a lot of focused talk about All-Star, but I'm not going to lie, like All-Star does not
All-Star
interest
is whatever.
me.
To be honest, like
It doesn't interest me.
the reserves will be announced in 2 days after this is posted. I'm sure everyone will get a chance to argue about them when that happens. Everybody, I'm sorry to announce that your favorite player did not make it by just a few votes. It's tough.
Yeah,
I feel for you, but
tough.
tough shit, man. There's only 12 slots per conference, so
Yeah.
that's life.
All-Star has not been interesting to me in a long time.
Dunk contest is going to be, I'm guessing Mac McClung is going to win it again.
I mean, there's some good young dunkers in it, like Stephon Castle and some of them, and
I'm
Matas
not familiar with
Buzelis.
his dunk situation, but
He's
I'm
had some good
excited to
ones.
see a rookie introduce himself to the world in the dunk contest. I hope he shows
The
out.
Bulls, they're young, white, athletic rookie. I don't know why. Matas Buzelis.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
or I think I butchered his
He
last
did
name,
like
but
the G League Ignite thing or something like that. I think he didn't play
I can't
college.
remember. I don't remember,
Yeah.
but he's in it. So like, there's some decent, fun young names, but nobody that's like, you know, it's not like the days
Matas
of
Buzelis,
getting
there we go. Yeah.
Matas. Yeah, sorry, fucked up his name. My bad. He's had some fun moments for sure in the league. If he develops properly, he's going to be a very good player, I think. Unfortunately, he
He
plays
was
for the
talked about
Bulls.
as a potential number one before, like when he was still in high school, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, he played incredibly well in summer league. He was really good. Like he showed what you need a player like him to show in summer league, that he's honestly better than that competition.
Hmm.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's playing for the Bulls, who don't really seem to know if they're coming or going at any point ever. So there's that.
It's been like
But
5 years of this shit.
oh god, Yeah, it's been rough. I feel like it's really been since they traded Jimmy that it's been like that. They haven't really known what the hell to do. But what are you gonna do? I guess I don't know. All Star is just like not interesting. The 3-point contest is honestly boring. Never liked it.
Yeah.
The dunk contest kind of sucks since I don't know. Since Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine stopped dunking, it's been way less fun.
That was because there hasn't been a contest in a while where there's been
Headliners, like
maybe
true headliners.
the Obi topping one, but there hasn't been too many
But
where there's been two
he's
guys
not a
who are
star. Like
genuinely
he's
balling
not like,
out.
and
Yeah,
he's talented, but he's
yeah,
not like a star. He wasn't really a starter at the time. He's not like, and
yeah.
he was a new player. I think he was still like a rookie or
There
like
hasn't been
second
like a
year.
Zion like in the dunk
Yeah,
contest
like
where somebody
or
like
a
all
jaw, like
star type.
a big name, a big name,
Yeah,
frankly. Like
Ja
Obi,
versus Zion would have fed families, man. That would have been
yeah,
my
right, and it's
goodness.
right, and that's I think kind of the biggest. And I get what people don't want to do the dunk contest, but I don't know. They need to do
Ant
something.
versus insert name here would have been
Oh, yeah, Ant would be
oof.
fabulous.
Couldn't think
So
of a
good.
second name. I'm sorry.
Frankly, Ant versus Jaw would be fun because both of them are pretty like two young, bouncy stars. Good times.
Man, man,
Yeah,
I missed
but
dunking. That shit was the best. That shit was the best.
cannot say I've
I'm
ever had
old
the
now.
pleasure.
My knees are fucking really close to turning to dust completely.
Same. I just can't say I ever got close to dunking. Frankly, not even remotely.
Sorry, it's just a height thing.
My vertical was never great either. But yes, it's also a height thing. I am all of 5,
Yeah,
so that was a lot more ground to cover
yeah,
for
yeah.
me. Oh, jam. Well, that was an all-star conversation. I don't know. I don't even care if there's nobody I think got robbed. I don't have strong opinions on All-Star. This is more of a contractually obligated mention of the All-Star game, frankly.
Shout out
I'd
to
rather
Big Body Brunson. Shout out to Bodega Cat out
I'd
here
rather
hooping.
I'd rather talk about the wine, frankly, than the All-Stars, which actually this wine has been going down quite smoothly.
Yeah, how did you feel about it? Like overall?
I mean, again, I can't taste as much as I'd really prefer right now, but it's been good. It's been really easy to drink. It's been super, super crushable, frankly, while we've talked, and it's I would say pretty characteristic of California. It doesn't specify Healdsburg, California.
Healdsburg?
Not sure where
I'm
that
not,
is.
as a Californian, not familiar with. I don't even know if it's Healdsburg or Healdsburg, but I don't know it.
Yeah, no idea. So let's just say it's not the highest quality of California wines. Well, that's not true. So
It was good.
people,
We just don't know if it's from like the prestigious region.
it's near the closest
Sonoma.
like
It's Sonoma.
yeah, it's Sonoma. Yeah, it's close to Santa Rosa. It's like the biggest place close by. It's in Sonoma. So that's it. This is a Sonoma wine for sure. Sonoma's a hot climate, so you get really like fruity and like sugary kind of grapes out of Sonoma sometimes. So this tracks.
Did you know that the first commercial development of the seasoning lemon pepper was in Healdsburg in 1967?
Okay, I
I
now
would
know
have
that.
assumed Atlanta.
Yeah.
Did not know. No notes on the pronunciation of the town name. Wikipedia did not clue me
Okay.
into that, so I hope I'm
So
not fucking it up.
Healdsburg's famous for lemon pepper,
Would never
and
have guessed.
Healdsburg walked so that Atlanta could run with lemon
Rick
pepper.
Ross owes a debt to Healdsburg, California, and or
Same
Healdsburg, California, depending on how it's
same with lemon pepper Lou.
Yeah, shout out to Lou Williams.
Raptors legend lemon pepper Lou.
You know you ever seen like the strip club veteran hats
Yeah,
that are modeled after the Vietnam veteran hats? Yeah,
yeah.
that's first
Shout
thing
out
I
to
think of.
the club that retired James Harden's jersey.
Hey, I mean, you can get your jersey retired in the stadium. You get your jersey retired in the streets.
So the
It
brewery
still counts.
when Yarmir Yager came to play for the Calgary Flames for that one season, this brewery I worked at made like a special Yager beer, and when he left the Flames, they retired. They had like a little banner made of like
Amazing,
the Yager, like the can logo, and they like retired it in the tap room. It was like in the rafters of the tap room.
amazing.
It was awesome.
If I'm back in Calgary, I'm going to that brewery. I'm doing it.
I'll take you there because I
I'm
used
doing
to
it.
work there, and
I'm doing it.
I'll get you a tour. I'll even see if they'll let me give you a personalized tour because I used to work there.
When I went to Czechia in high school, we were like helping teach English at like some local schools and to like the little kids, and it was like very basic stuff like their textbook, and then like the older kids, and we were working with the older kids. It's like we had like a period of just like free flowing conversation outside of like the exercises in the book. And I just remember being like, I don't know what to talk to them about. I was like, hey, do y'all know Yaga?
Yeah.
Hey, y'all know
Yarmir,
Jaromir Jagr? And they were like, hell yeah, we love him. And I was like, yo, Rangers fan, me
me
too.
too.
Yeah.
Everybody
So that's
loves
what we
Yarmir
talked about for
Jagr,
like 20 minutes to
frankly.
talk about Jagr and how fucking cool he is.
I don't think you can be a real hockey fan and not love Yarmir Jagr. I think you're
He's
a
played
bad
for every
person.
team. Like, you have to like him. He
I
probably
just,
played for your franchise.
I actually just think you're a bad person if you don't like Yarmir Jagr.
I found out in a history
Like,
class after I moved to Toronto that he picked his jersey number off of like an uprising in Czechia
yeah,
back in the day in '69,
yeah,
if I recall correctly.
68.
Yeah, there we go. I
Yeah.
got his number wrong. Yeah, 68.
My favorite Yarmir Jagr thing was when he was playing in Florida, and this woman tried to like blackmail him, like, "Oh, I'll release these pictures of us," like blah blah blah, and he's like, "Cool," like, because he's not married, so he's like fucking 19-year-old models, and
Yeah, whatever.
this girl like low key tried to blackmail him, and he's like, "Okay, like, I'm not married, man. I don't know what you want from me."
You ain't heard about me in the streets? Like, what
Yeah,
you
like
mean?
that.
What am I
Cool.
gonna lose?
Literally, I mean, he did lose a lot of his money to a bad financial advisor,
That's a
but
shame. That's
yeah.
a shame.
I
Poor guy.
love that man. He's still playing in Czechia too for the club he
Still
owns.
balling, like 52, 53.
Yeah,
Still balling.
for the club that he owns, but that's not important.
Yeah.
Still a goddamn
Yeah,
legend.
I saw him cut somebody up the other day. He
Yeah,
put some moves on somebody and had a
he's
beautiful assist.
he's a
Still got
goddamn
it.
legend. Goddamn legend. Yeah.
The mullet champion.
I don't think that the brewery still has that banner hanging, actually, which makes me sad because they redid the tap room. But I'm gonna text my friend who works there and see if they still have the banner somewhere, and if they do, if I can have it.
I need it. I need it. I need to see it at least.
Yeah, I'll try and find a picture for you at least, but I'll throw it up on our Instagram if I find the photo. But it was pretty epic. I mean, I'm sure some wineries are gonna need to like start retiring LeBron James's. Some French wineries are gonna need to start retiring LeBron James's number somewhere
Oh
in
yeah.
the cellar somewhere. Yeah.
One of these days we gotta do an episode on NBA players and their wine cellars and also potentially wineries. There's some other athletes in other sports who own wineries who I don't know if we talked about this in the previous pod, but
The Bledsoe wine.
man, Drew Bledsoe's wine it's fucking good. And I remember being shocked by it because it got like I was working at a wine store and it got like we had wine enthusiast like subscription. And I saw it and there was like a 90 or a 91 score and I was like, oh, bought it a few years later. It was fantastic. It was fucking good. Shout out to Doubleback Winery in Walla Walla, Washington. He did get a Super Bowl with us. At least he got the one, before he went to Buffalo.
Well, I'm gonna get my Psalm friend to come on. We'll power rank all the NBA player, all the athlete wine cellars we can find.
If we can get as many I think wines as we can, that
Yeah. I'm hoping, I don't know. Womp womp. I didn't win the work trip to New Zealand, so now planning summer vacations. And I'm
no
like,
Steven Adams wine.
if we go to if we go to the States, I'm definitely gonna. He's a more of a beer guy, also. If we go to the U.S. this summer, I'm hoping to go to the Pacific Northwest and load up on shit. So we'll. I have a friend in Oregon who I'm thinking about getting Mellow's wine shipped to. See if she'll ship it to me.
I tried to get it to Toronto. They hit
Yeah.
me back like 2 weeks later saying, "Hey man, we can't do it." But
I don't think it's gonna come. It won't come to Canada just because of like import laws. But I have two hopes. One, some agency will probably pick it up, honestly, and import it.
yeah,
But quantities might be the issue, is the only thing, because he's definitely more like smaller production situation,
hmm
I think. But I'm going to see if I can ship it to my friend in Oregon and see if she'll reship it to me. And if that happens, I'll try and get enough that I can just reship more to Toronto. We'll figure it out.
man, that'd be dope. That'd be dope. Shout out to Shake Mello out there
I'll get you
promoting
some.
the Dubai Championships.
I got a bottle of Domaine Curry kicking around. I have some Prisoner wine, which is Maurice Harkless. He invested in Prisoner.
Did not know that.
Yeah, so I actually full
Random, but a dude once did a song. It's like basketball Twitter royalty dude once did a song as a joke where he said "ball like Mo Harkless," and I was like, wow, this guy's really really a
really an
hoops
NBA
guy.
fan. Yeah.
Yeah, man,
So
my goodness.
I actually represent Prisoner Wines. They do a lot of really cool shit. One of their main things is about like restorative justice and helping like formerly incarcerated people get back into society and find jobs and whatever, because it's obviously a big problem in the U.S. And Mo Harkless has a nonprofit that does similar work, and so they invested in Prisoner Wine. And yeah, big fan.
That's dope. That's dope.
Yeah, prisoner wine's pretty sweet, but yeah, I mean a lot of the prisoner. So I have some domaine curry. Gotta get you some domaine curry. I also have to. I get to sell Steph Curry's wife's Aisha Curry's wine. Steph, I get to. I
I've
get.
had her food at the restaurant. She had a location in Honolulu, in Waikiki, I believe. When I lived out in Hawaii, but I have not had the curry's wine.
I have some of it. I get to sell it actually. It's somewhat difficult. It's very expensive. It's super expensive. That's really the
I
problem,
assume
frankly.
Napa.
It's
Yeah,
actually the Robert Mondavi Oakville. It's yeah, yeah, it's from Oakville. I saw Mondavi. It's the Oakville vineyard. So it's good juice. I haven't tried it yet, but good grapes, but it's just really expensive. But I'm
yeah.
excited to try that. So we'll do some fun content around player wine here. Hopefully we can get our hands on more than just the James Harden wine because it was pretty mid, frankly. There's
I'm gonna
better.
look out for more. I'm gonna look out for more. If I see any other Hoover's wines,
Yeah.
I'm
I
copping.
really I need to get to Oregon and get the Deladon wine. I need Elena's wine.
I
I
didn't know
need
she had one.
Yeah, it's in the Willamette. She has a Willamette
Okay, is
Pinot.
it a Pinot?
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
She has a
all
Willamette
right.
Pinot, but you could only buy it at the winery, and I need to get my hands on some. So I need to either bribe my friend to go to the winery and send me some, or I
I
need to
got
just
one
get my
friend
ass
in
there.
Portland. I gotta investigate.
I got a friend, so my friend in Portland, she's shout out Lorraine. She's a big wine collector. I guess at one point she had like 2,000 bottles of wine. And she's from BC originally, she's from Canada, so
Hmm.
but she's a big like Oregon wine person, so she promised when I come visit next time, she's got like various membership clubs and shit that she's part of, so she's gonna like show me around Oregon wine tasting.
That's dope.
But yeah, I kind of was like, I'm trying to see if I can maybe bribe Low to go get me some Deladon wine. But I am planning, my partner and I are planning a big road trip through. We'll drive from Calgary down to like Seattle and then down through the Pacific Northwest and then home through like I want to go to Yellowstone and shit like that on the way back.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah, do like a big road trip, drive down the California coast, just drink wine the whole way down, see some WNBA games, be a good time. Yeah,
Dang.
the dream. The dream. Now that I'm not going to New Zealand. What a bummer. I didn't go 2 for 2. I did not sweep the trips.
At least it made it to Italy.
I did. I did. And I drank so much Brunello. It was worth it. I probably drank my body weight in Brunello, honestly, truly. Like so much.
That's a dream.
The dream, yeah. Wow. I back to the actual wine itself though. It's a pretty solid Cab Sav, and I would certainly recommend it as just like an easy drinker. It's pretty affordable. I think it was like around the $20 range at
Yeah,
LCBO where
it was
you
right
are in
around there.
Ontario. Yeah, same in here. I overpaid slightly because I went to a tiny liquor store because it was convenient, but it's around that. It's like super accessible price point. It's pretty good. It's no one's, especially for just like party wine or just,
Hmm.
casual glass of wine. It's a good drinker. So
It's a
I
really
would,
easy cabernet.
I would probably hit again, honestly. It's fine. I wouldn't go
Would hit again. Good to
would
know.
hit again. Yeah.
Would hit again.
That's
Yo,
like the scale that my partner and I use when we cook something new or like something we're like would hit again? Yeah, would hit again. That's like
man.
the yeah. Yeah, would hit
I was,
again.
I was just thinking about the last thing I cooked, and I was like, damn, I'm really him. I was like, I'm not gonna lie. I was like,
Yeah.
damn, I really got it like that.
That's how I feel.
Sorry, the people listening at home can't.
Relate.
We don't have the technology to allow you to taste it from here, but dog,
Yeah.
I'm really like that.
I'm not
I
gonna
hate to
lie,
say it.
like I think we're both probably pretty good cooks. We should do some kind of I wish we lived closer. We could do like actual wine and food pairings. A lot easier, but
2,000 miles ish. You know what I mean? It's not
fine. Super fine.
public
Super
transit will get
fine.
us there.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a train that runs across Canada.
It takes like 5 days to get.
Yeah, we have the Trans-Canadian like railway, but it's only for commercial use because the commuter trains are ass. You gotta take a
Just so
bus for
bad.
some parts of it. You gotta take a bus for part of it. It's not actually a train.
So it's more expensive than a fucking flight too.
It's
Like, what is
brutal.
the
It's so
point?
bad.
What is
Yeah.
the point?
I have a Porter Airlines gift card I gotta make use of, so I gotta get out there. We can go post up
Damn.
at a sandwich shop and drink some wine
I think
for the
Porter
people.
has only taken me to Boston so far, and I do not recommend driving in the Boston area. I don't recommend. I'm
Boston.
not going to disparage Boston.
Seems like a
today.
terrible place.
But like, don't drive in the
Today.
Boston area.
Specifically on this episode, we'll leave Boston alone. The
Incredible
catchphrase.
fucking seafood in Boston.
Yeah, well,
Even at the
yeah.
airport, I had legal seafoods out there. Great.
I do love me a good clam chowder soup, and
My God.
Boston clam chowder. Manhattan clam chowder is disgusting. So
Boston and Monterey, California, phenomenal clam
when
chowder.
I was in,
I don't know why I gave a thumbs up on the screen, but
I went to Santa Barbara when I was like really young. My mom got to go to some she worked for a sod company, like a grass company. And they went to Santa Barbara for some work thing, and my dad and I got to go with her. And I remember I literally ate clam chowder soup like every fucking day because the seafood was so fresh and good. And I don't even like fish, but I like seafood, and like the clam chowder soup was off the charts. Yeah, it was so good. I hate salmon. I hate it. It's gross.
salmon is
Horrible.
not one of my favorite fish. But
I'll eat fried
do
fish.
fuck with fish heavy.
No, do not. Hard pass.
I come from coastal people, so I'm a fish person. But I never cook it. I never cook fish, but I eat it all the fucking time.
I come solidly from cow country. So
I see.
yes. You want a good piece of beef? I got you. I got that on lock. But yeah, no, not fish. Fish is gross. And on that note, we should probably wrap up. Fuck fish. Yeah. Any final thoughts before we hit the road?
BG, come back home. You know, my former neighbor we used to both live in Goodyear at the same time. Shout out to Brittany Griner. Actually, random bit of personal trivia. I got her book for my mom as one of her Christmas presents. She was excited to read it.
Oh, sweet.
But yeah, Griner, man, big franchise legend. You know, former champion. Would love to have her back. Any number of former Phoenix players I mentioned before, love to have them back. Yeah, go Knicks, man. We don't suck. It's been multiple years in a row. It feels weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope BG comes home. I feel the same way about Sloot. I hope Sloot comes back to Chicago just for one more year, just to retire. Have a little going out party, you know. I wanted to retire as Chicago Sky, a Liberty player.
I still got beef with her, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Fair enough.
The
I
beef
respect
not
that.
from being malicious, but just from fucking us up in the finals.
No, like fair enough. I get it. She did fuck you up in the finals for sure.
It's true.
It's true. She led to DT punching a door. So
yeah. Both of my basketball teams have had famous punching
door
incidents.
punching
Amari
incidents.
Stoudemire almost destroyed his hand permanently on a fire hydrant or something.
Yeah, unhinged behavior. But anyways, well, that's that for another episode of Wine and Dime. Come to us for all of your random Canadian geography and wine-induced takes.
Yeah, if you have any labor history questions or WNBA free agency concerns, feel free to hit us up. I am at Chris_Harrison1 on Twitter. She is Hellion the First.
On every platform.
I'm also on Blue Sky as Lionel Brokey. Some people
Is
have not
Blue Sky
gotten the
worth it?
pun and thought my name was actually Lionel, which is always a good time.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
Are you actually on? How is Blue Sky? Is it actually worth it?
The fun from Twitter has not made it over. A lot of the journalism has made it, but a lot of the jokes have not migrated in the way that I same with threads. Like the funny has not made it over yet.
Fair enough. But yeah, like you said, I'm Hellion the First on all platforms, and we're at Wine and Dime Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So hit us up there. For all three of you who consistently listen to us, appreciate you.
Hey, it's at least double digits now. I checked the YouTube stats.
Hell yeah. Cheers to you guys. Go get some Cannonball. It's actually pretty good. It's at least cheap, so can't lose that. And we'll talk to you next time.
Yep.